What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we will see what if Naruto had Mokuton. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments, and also check the description box to original creator of this creation. A young boy, with bright yellow hair, striking blue eyes and 3 whisker marks on each cheek, ran down the streets of Konohagakure. Paint smeared all over his face and clothes, hysterically laughing all the while. The adults were seething as he ran past them, annoyed that they couldn't get anyone to reprimand the small boy. The Hokage sat in his office sighing, with his head in his hands. He watched the boy's prank and wasn't best pleased. He would see a lot more paperwork in his future. After the boy had gotten away from the mob, he sat on the stone monuments. Where the previous Hokage were honored, his musings were interrupted by a pull he felt from behind him. He quickly got ready to fight or run, depending on how the situation developed. He put his undersized arms out in front of him. An older ninja would probably laugh at the unstable footing he employed. However, he never minded the shinobi and kunoichi of the village. He actually kind of liked them. They weren't sending death glares at him for no apparent reason. The person who greeted the young boy smiled slightly at the willingness to protect himself from the young boy. The older man was standing there in his traditional Hokage garb. He knew the boy probably couldn't win in a fight against many people. Still, his readiness showed pretty advanced sensory abilities. The older man walked up to the boy, and the boy dropped his stance. He knew the older man would never hurt him. As he came closer, the older man noticed the lack of a smile on the boy's face. The 1,000-watt smile that had adorned his face just a few hours ago was gone without a trace. "Hello, Naruto," the old man greeted the young boy with a small smile. "Hello Gigi," the now identified Naruto greeted back unenthusiastically. The older man sat down on the stone head. He paid to beckon Naruto to sit down next to him. Naruto sat down next to him. Naruto let one leg dangle off the edge, and the other one folded and rested his head on his knee. He looked melancholily over the village that he called home. The sunset shone over the treetops, lighting the town in brilliant orange. Naruto loved the color. He always had an orange jumpsuit on that he had gotten from his Gigi. It also had a red swirl pattern on his back, the Uzumaki clan crest, though he didn't know that. He was struck by the fantastic beauty and serene calm that washed from the village. "Makes you want to protect this place, doesn't it?" The older man suddenly interrupted the pregnant silence between them. "Maybe if I wasn't so glared at," Naruto whispered back, barely holding back tears, "and if the Hokage weren't a ninja, he probably wouldn't have heard him." A small regretful sigh escaped the old Hokage. The promise he made to the kid's parents came to the forefront of his mind, wondering if he had made a mistake not taking him into his house. Council be damned. But he didn't have the political capital to make such a move and keep Danzo's grubby little mitts off Naruto. "The villagers will always fear what they don't understand," he said at last. Anger suddenly flashed in Naruto's eyes. He flew up to his feet and yelled, "What is there not to understand? Am I not the same as their children or the other children at the orphanage?" Tears were streaming down his face. "You're right. You are not different from the other children," the Hokage stated, not meeting the pained look in Naruto's eyes. "But something happened on the day of your birth. The 9-tailed fox attacked. We had fail-safes, but they didn't work. A lot of people see you as the reincarnation of the fox after the 4th killed it." The Hokage swallowed slightly. Naruto didn't notice the tense hiccup in the story, and the Hokage continued. "And then you came along. Born on the same night that the fox died, you became their scapegoat, and thus their hatred for the fox fell onto you. It's not fair, and I'm doing everything I can to help you." The usually stoic Hokage nearly lost it with the lie, but he couldn't let Naruto know the whole truth yet. Naruto took the story and understanding the hate he received a little better now. He didn't think he would forgive the villagers yet, but he would not hate the villagers back. So he excused himself and made his way home. He swore to himself that he would become the most powerful ninja the village had ever seen. For that, he needed to study and train. If people had seen the look in his eyes, they would have been terrified the demon fox would get more powerful than ever. The next few days were quiet in Konoha. Naruto had not pulled a prank on anyone in a couple of days, and it worried the population. They all thought Naruto's next stunt would be even more destructive than his latest put together. They were wrong. Naruto had not been planning any new pranks. Instead, he had snuck into the library to study. He had to sneak in because the grumpy librarian would have thrown him out. He read anything he could get his hands on. What he read most was the history of Konoha and about her Hokage. Something about the fourth and first spoke to him on a deep level. Apparently, that was the gold standard for what the village considered powerful. Not to besmirch the second and third, but they just weren't the same. Naruto had slept on top of the shelves since he made his promise. Finally, he decided to try something he had read. So he sneakily made his way out of the library, silently thanking his old pranking persona for his unintentional stealth training. After making it to a small clearing in the forest, he sat down in a lotus position. Eyes closed. His hands fell into a snake seal without him knowing it, and he tried to unlock his chakra. He did as he had read and tried reaching for the energy deep within himself. Finally, after 15 minutes, he felt something. It was dense and made him feel warm and happy. He let the energy envelop him, and a bright green coating began thrashing about around him. The trees soon began swaying towards the young boy. Flowers started blooming near the vicinity. The ground cracked in a spiderweb-like fashion underneath him. The Hokage, who had been watching through his crystal ball, nearly fainted when he saw that. He quickly ordered his secretary not to let anyone into his office and made his way towards Naruto. As soon as he set his foot in the forest Naruto had been, he felt Naruto's presence. He hurried even more. A 5-year-old shouldn't have so much chakra even if he were a Jinchuriki. He soon arrived in the clearing where Naruto still sat. "Congratulations Naruto, you just awakened a bloodline thought lost," the older man said as he approached the young boy. Naruto slowly opened his eyes. His Gigi was there with the biggest smile Naruto had ever seen on the older man. Naruto, taken aback by the sudden lack of energy, fainted. But not after putting up a peace sign and the biggest and brightest smile he could muster. The older man chuckled slightly and walked over to the now snoring young boy. He took him into his arms and shunshined to his office. Naruto felt himself waking up. He swept his eyes across the room he was in. He didn't recognize it. Instead, he felt panic overtake him. "Calm down, Naruto, you're in my office." He recognized the voice and snapped his head towards it. "Gigi. Did you see it? I unlocked my chakra." The panic turned into excitement, which was clearly evident in his voice. "I saw Naruto. You have a lot of it as well," the Sandaime said, smiling at the bouncing 5-year-old in front of him. "But you are going to have to keep quiet about what happened. The Mokuton is a very powerful bloodline, and many people would like to end it before it becomes a problem later," the Sandaime said warningly. "Mokuton?" Naruto asked, raising his eyebrows and tilting his head. He looked like a confused puppy. The Sandaime had to take a second to commit this to his memory. Then, a soft smile spread on his face. "Yes, Naruto, Mokuton. It's the bloodline of the Shodai, Hashirama Senju." The Sandaime felt nostalgic. The older man missed his even more senior teacher. "That's so cool." Naruto became even more excited. He remembered what he read about the Shodai. "Naruto did listen to a word I said? You can't tell anyone until you're strong enough to defend yourself," Sandaime said, sighing. Why?" Naruto said, calming down slightly. "Like I told you, the Mokuton is a very powerful bloodline. Some will want to kill you for having her experiment on you. So I'm going to give you a teacher who can teach you how to use it," the Sandaime explained to the small boy. "Okay, but I don't like it. It feels like locking a part of myself away." Naruto agreed, slightly out of the character he portrayed to the public. The Sandaime himself was somewhat taken aback. He stood up from behind his desk and walked towards the small boy. He knelt to his level and put a hand on his shoulder. This poor boy, who had lost more than what most people would ever lose, was now asked to lock away a part of himself within. "Thank you Naruto. I don't want to lose you too," he said in a soft voice, almost too small to hear. It was Naruto's turn to be taken aback. He didn't know he meant so much to the old Hokage. He teared up a little. He knew the old man was important to him. The only important one. His shoulders slumped. "I'll get so strong that you'll never have to worry again." His bottom lip trembled as he said his vow. "I know you will. I just hope I am alive to see it," the Sandaime said, moving his hand on his shoulder to his arm and placing his other hand on the other arm. "I'll make sure of it," Naruto said finally, with a fire in his eyes. The following week, Naruto was to meet his Mokuton teacher. He was sitting on a tree pole on the training ground. Training Ground 3 was in a clearing in the middle of woodlands. Since unlocking his chakra, Naruto hated being away from soil and nature. Concrete was the worst. It felt so dead and inorganic. The time of the meeting came, and so did an Anbu with a tiger mask. The man seemed to be in his teens. "Hello, my name is Tora. You will call me Tora Senpai or Tora Sensei. I hear you unlocked your chakra already?" The tiger-masked man introduced himself. "Yes, Tora Sensei," Naruto answered as he jumped down from the pole, connecting to the root system of the forest around him. "Good, then we'll start with." The training that followed was the hardest thing Naruto had ever done. "And then I was like bam and wapow," Naruto animatedly explained. The older man listened as Naruto explained his training with great zeal. Naruto had been training with Tora for 6 months now and was showing great promise. His Mokuton has significantly grown. Other than his ninjutsu, his taijutsu was already on a genin level. However, his genjutsu skills are significantly below average. The old man suspected it was because of the tenet in his seal. "Do you want to take the clan name of Senju?" The man suddenly interrupted the young man's rambling. "What?" Naruto didn't understand the question. "Do you want to change your last name to Senju?" The older man repeated his question. "I did some research on how you could have gotten the Mokuton to begin with," the Hokage explained. "Apparently, your mother was the great-grandchild of Hashirama and Mito Senju. Mito was from the Uzumaki clan, and their second child was sent to Uzushigakure. Soon he married into the head family of the Uzumaki. Your mother came into being eventually and was sent to Konoha before Uzushio got annihilated in the Second Great Ninja War." The Hokage explained. He was seeing the gloom look on Naruto's face after hearing of his mother's family's fate. "You do have an aunt though. She isn't in the village, but she is out there," he said, hoping to encourage the young boy. However, he did not expect the rage of a 5-and-a-half-year-old. "Why did she leave me here instead of helping me?" Naruto seethed out. "She didn't know you were related, Naruto. She also lost a lot in the previous wars. I've tried to get her back for years," the Hokage explained. "So, will you take the name?" the Hokage asked again after a few minutes. "What would happen if I did?" Naruto asked in return. "Well, the political stuff will be out of your hands until you're 15 or Chunin," the Hokage said. "But it would mean the other founding clan would resurface and it may make the villagers behave better towards you," he continued. "But I want them to stop doing that because they respect me for who I am," Naruto said, crossing his arms pouting cutely. "But they dislike you for something out of your control. Why don't you fight it back with something else out of your control?" the Hokage countered. "Fine, I guess I'll do it." Naruto finally relented. "Also would like to start the academy program? You would be slightly ahead your age group, but it would do you some good to meet people your age. Also advise the return of the Senju," the Hokage asked. "I'll do it." Naruto instantly agreed. The first day of the academy was coming up, nearly 6 months since the Hokage asked him if he wanted to join. Naruto was feeling excited and nervous. He stood outside the door. He could hear the uproar inside, then a deep yell and everyone calmed down. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door. It slid open, and 40 pairs of eyes stared at him. He walked up to the teacher's desk and handed him a scroll that the Hokage had asked him to give to his teacher. The teacher skimmed through, his eyes bugging out more and more the longer he got into the scroll. After finishing, he cleared his throat. "This is your new classmate," he said to the class. "He will be with us from now on, so be nice to him," he continued. Naruto heard some whispers, and they weren't that nice. Some people must have recognized him. "You should introduce yourself," the teacher said towards Naruto. "Hello, my name is Naruto Senju. I hope we can get along," he said as he bowed. You could hear a pin drop after he said his last name. "EHHHHH," was the collective response to his last name. A black-haired and black-eyed boy perked up. He seemed unimpressed with the newcomer until he said his last name. He smirked slightly, finally someone who could keep up. Naruto walked up to an empty seat. He asked to sit down next to a pineapple ponytail and a slightly chubby boy. The pineapple head he asked had his head on the desk, obviously trying to sleep. He knew the chubby boy was from the Akamichi clan since he had that chubby cheeks and blush that all of them had. The pineapple head he mused was from the Nara clan. The sleepy Nara turned his attention towards the blonde boy smiling at him. With great reluctance, he allowed him to sit down. The rest of the lesson was fine, if not a little boring. A couple of days later, some villagers have begun to leave Naruto alone since hearing the rumor of his heritage. Naruto is sitting on his favorite pole, waiting for his sensei. "What are you doing here?" Naruto says towards the forest. A black-haired head poked out from a bush. "That is my question. We aren't supposed to be here until we have a team," the black-haired boy said. "Typical Senju behavior, expecting favoritism all the time," he said whilst emerging from the bush, crossing his arms over his chest and pouting. "You're Sasuke Uchiha, right? I have something that requires training. It's not that different from you receiving training for your Sharingan, is it?" Naruto countered. "Also, don't you have training ground at the clan compound?" Naruto mirrored his expression and body language. Lightning shot out from both eyes at this point. "I didn't know there were any Senjus left except for Tsunade," he suddenly said. "My mother was the great-grandchild of the first Hokage," Naruto said, turning slightly sad at the thought of his mother. That's the moment Tora decided to make his appearance. "I thought I told you to keep this a secret," Tora said to Naruto. "I did, he followed me from school." Naruto slumped his shoulders as he explained how an academy student followed him without him noticing. The training continued as per usual. Except for that Sasuke was training with as well. Naruto was happy he had a rival to measure his growth and strength. However, as Naruto went home after training, he felt a horrible shiver and that something terrible was about to happen. Naruto was sprinting down the main street of Konoha without a care in the world. The somber atmosphere took him by surprise, though. As he barged into the classroom, he was surprised not to see Sasuke in his ordinary seat near the window. Instead, he walked up to one of his fangirls with pink hair, Sakura, whom he thought her name was. "Where is Sasuke? You would know, right?" Naruto said with a smile. "Didn't you hear? Something big happened to the Uchiha clan yesterday night. Sasuke has been unconscious since," she said. She looked down onto legs clenching her fists. "Well, I guess I'm going to be skipping class today then." Naruto started walking out. Sakura snapped her head towards his retreating form. He waved to her as he stepped around the corner. Naruto sat in a squat on the balcony outside Sasuke's window. He knocked on the window to be courteous, no change in Sasuke's sleeping form, so he opened the window and hoped to the side of Sasuke. Well, what do we have here?" Naruto said out loud to himself. "What are you doing here, Naruto?" An older man's voice interrupted his musings. "Gigi, I could say the same to you. Me myself. I thought you would want a friend," Naruto said as he placed a hand on Sasuke's shoulder. "I didn't think you were," the Hokage said in surprise. "We aren't, but I hope we can be." Naruto had moved a chair to sit next to the bed. The Hokage smiled and walked out of the room. After 15 minutes of just sitting watching for changes in Sasuke, nothing happened. He stood up, slapping his legs as he did. He paced around the room for another 5 minutes. Naruto sat down in the lotus position, hands in the ram seal. The seals were still fresh in his mind from his academy lessons. He molded chakra that felt different from his usual Mokuton, or even Suiten or Doten. A hint of green sheen began glowing around his hands. The chakra felt refreshing and nurturing. He decided to put his hands to Sasuke, it just felt right to do. The exhaustion was getting to Naruto now. He was able to hold it for a couple of seconds longer. Sasuke felt lighter a second before he woke up. The pure sadness and anger towards his brother also felt more manageable than before. He opened his eyes. He saw a mop of yellow hair and striking blue eyes. "Naruto, huh?" was the first thought in his mind. He blinked twice, his vision cleared. Naruto was sitting in a chair, panting. Naruto was running down the streets of Konohagakure. A couple of angry voices were following after him. He starts to laugh as ran past more store owners. Most have a favorable opinion of him nowadays. And those who don't, well, they had to expect to get pranked by him at some point. He had only gotten better at avoiding those who were trying to punish him after the pranks as well. The only one able to stop him at this point was Iruka-sensei. That was because he knew Naruto would show up to class afterwards as if nothing had happened. He'd get an earful after always pranking people. Most of his classmates enjoyed watching him get chewed out. The rest found it immensely annoying having to start most of the days with Naruto getting into trouble. Sasuke was in the latter camp but for a different reason. He found it annoying that someone of Naruto's skill level would stoop so low. It didn't make sense to him. As a result of the Uchiha massacre, he had begun to withdraw himself from village life. Still, Naruto was always there to pull him back. He hated and loved him for it. Naruto had started filling in the Itachi-shaped hole in his life. He wasn't sure how to feel about that. Naruto was sitting in the classroom, waiting for the graduation exams to start. He had prepared himself for this. Even if he couldn't do the stupid Bunshin jutsu, he had gotten a replacement from Tora-sensei. Iruka-sensei walked in soon enough. "Alright everyone, calm down," he said as soon as he reached his desk. No one listened, and the chatter continued as if nothing had happened. "Quiet down now," he screamed at the top of his lungs while using his signature big head jutsu. Naruto never figured out how he does that. He talked to Shikamaru about it, but the lazy Nara never engaged the blonde Senju, so it was usually Naruto ranting at Shikamaru. Everyone quieted down as soon as Iruka-sensei screamed, "Let's get this started. We'll start with a test, and then we're going on to taijutsu and then finally ninjutsu." Iruka continued in a more reasonable tone and volume. "The test will start now, and it will take 90 minutes to finish," he said as he walked around handing out tests along with his assistant Mizuki, who had joined in soon after Iruka. "Good luck, Senju," Mizuki said with enough venom to kill an elephant. Mizuki, just like Iruka, was wearing the standard Chunin uniform with a blue shirt with Uzumaki swirls on each shoulder and blue pants. The flag jacket, which signifies their rank, was a deep green with 6 pouches on the chest. The Uzumaki swirl is also on the back of the flag jackets. Both were wearing their Hite 8, the symbol of a shinobi's loyalties, around their forehead. Mizuki, however, was wearing it as a bandana while Iruka had it as a headband. Naruto was still wearing his orange jumpsuit. Bright orange was going to get him killed one day, was the prevailing thought among his peers. Naruto ignored the venom from his teacher. He was used to by now and broke the weak genjutsu he had placed on Naruto's test. Naruto finished the examination without difficulty. He had studied this since he was a kid, after all. The whole class began moving out for the next part of the test, taijutsu. Naruto was not worried. He was effortlessly Chunin level in both taijutsu and ninjutsu. Genjutsu was hard for him, but he could break most low to mid-level ones, and Iryo ninjutsu was hard to train, but it felt just right when he suppressed the fox's chakra within him. Naruto was the first to arrive at the training ground and sat down in a lotus position, a habit he developed as he needed to focus. The rest of the class came soon enough. Naruto sat a few meters away from the testing ground. Iruka soon went in front of the class and said, "Alright, good job on the theoretical part, now we're going to test your physical skills." And then he gestured towards his assistant. "You're going to have a spar against Mizuki to test your skills," Iruka said. Mizuki waved with a friendly smile. "Did you hear that, Naruto?" Iruka asked. He has clearly given up on stopping the boy from seemingly not listening to him. Naruto lifted a thumb to his teacher, showing that he heard what the teachers expected of them. Most of the kids who passed were clan kids or kids with clan kid friends. Soon it was Naruto's turn. He stood up from his seated position and walked up towards Mizuki. Mizuki saw this as his chance to put the demon in his place. He didn't care if the monster changed his name or dyed his hair pink. He would always be an eyesore, devil, demon or whatever. He had tried to sabotage his chances of becoming a shinobi of Konoha. He would get his hands on the scroll of seals and give it to Orochimaru and take his place at his side. Hopefully, he could take the demon out with him. The demon was now standing in front of him in his disgustingly orange jumpsuit. Mizuki would raise the difficulty slightly to put him in his place. Iruka started the spar. Naruto disappeared from Mizuki's sight, and then before he could react, a hard punch found itself in his stomach. Mizuki found himself flying into the academy wall. Naruto didn't mean to strike him so hard. He just pissed him off so much. Naruto shifted his look towards Iruka, who was staring bug-eyed at the young Senju. He floundered at what to do for a second and then called the match in Naruto's favor. The rest of the class had to fight Iruka instead of Mizuki, who still hadn't woken up yet even after being tended by medical personnel. The class was done with the taijutsu before long. The ninjutsu was next, and Iruka and a newly awakened Mizuki sat in the room next to the classroom. People were going in regular intervals and coming back either with or without a Hite 8 of their own. Finally, Naruto's turn comes up, and he walks into the room. "Alright, Naruto, we need to see a kawarimi, a bunshin and a henge, Iruka said with a smile. Naruto stood in the center of the room, put his hands in the tiger seal, and hanged into a perfect copy of the Shodai. Hokage robed and hat on his head, he stood there for a couple of seconds before turning back. Okay, good job now, kawarimi, please, Iruka approved after he recovered slightly. A poof of smoke and a log took Naruto's place. Then Naruto came back, and finally, a bunshin, please, Iruka said after approving his kawarimi skills. Naruto put his hands in a cross and said, Kage bunshin no jutsu. 10 perfect copies of Naruto appeared smiling and high-fiving each other. This was not something an academy student was supposed to be able to do. Iruka was about to say something but was interrupted by Mizuki. Now Naruto. We asked for the bunshin, not Kage bunshin. No, the bunshin is the lowest we accept. If you know a better version it's alright, Iruka said, shutting down Mizuki. Congratulations, Naruto, you passed. Come up here and grab your Hite 8. You deserve it. Naruto let out one of his vibrant smiles. He walked up and grabbed a blue-banded Hite 8. Naruto was feeling great. Sure, he didn't get to be Rookie of the Year. But who cares about a title like that anyway? He was finally a ninja of the Hidden Leaf. So, he decided to celebrate at his favorite food joint, Ichiraku Ramen. He had eaten 2 bowls when Mizuki suddenly sat down next to him. Congratulations on becoming a shinobi, Naruto, he said with a smile. Naruto said a quiet thank you and waited for what Mizuki could want from him. You didn't get Rookie of the Year, though, and with your physical abilities, you really could be. So I'm going to give you a secret test that you can take to get the title. Naruto wondered what Mizuki had in mind. Go on, he said, and Mizuki smiled. So you're going to need to steal the scroll of seals from the Hokage's office. Well, this could be interesting. Naruto was sneaking through the Hokage tower. He didn't want to explain what he was doing to anyone other than the Hokage. He soon found himself outside the Hokage's office. He knocked twice. Come in, the aged voice of the Hokage was heard from within his office. Naruto opened the door. Gigi, I'm going to need to borrow the scroll of seals. We have a traitor in our midst, Naruto stated with a somber expression on his face. Okay, but I can't just let you have it, the Hokage declared. Naruto just chuckled, and the old man got a little worried. Alright, no jutsu. A poof of smoke and the 13-year-old boyish form was gone. A late teen, stark naked and perky in its place, the perfect girl body. The old Hokage could only last a couple of seconds until he shot blood out of his nose and fainted. Naruto felt good about his own jutsu working perfectly. He walked up the scroll and took it. Naruto sat on a tree in the lotus position. Mizuki soon arrived in the same clearing. The only difference was that he had 2 Fuma shurikens strapped to his back. Good job, Naruto. Now give me the scroll, he said. Naruto's blue eyes turned ice cold. Now why should I do that when you are just going to run away with it? A just as frigid voice snapped Mizuki out of his musings. He didn't even notice the new presence in the clearing. Ho ho. So the demon can think. His fake cheerfulness fell away and turned into the smuggest expression Naruto had ever seen. Do you know why the village hate you? Mizuki's smugness reached new levels. No, Mizuki, you can't, it's against the law. The presence made himself known. Iruka had apparently heard of Naruto's betrayal. It's because you are the 9-tailed fox. You WERETHE1WHOW killed all those people 12 years ago. Mizuki screamed at the top of his lungs. Naruto shifted slightly and stood up. Ho, you really came out and said it, huh? The iciness hadn't left his eyes nor tone. You knew. Both Iruka and Mizuki screamed at the same time. I've known since I was 6, but that isn't important. Naruto took a step forward and unleashed just his chakra. The chakra exploded around him. So much that you could see an outline of green around his body. Both Mizuki and Iruka took a step back, scared of the aura Naruto released. I'm not the damn demon fox. I'm Senju Naruto, great-great-grandchild of the first Hokage, Genin of Konohagakure and Juin-Churiki of the 9 Tails. And you dare threaten my home? I'll kill you. Naruto screamed out the first part but almost whispered out the last threat. Don't get cocky, demon. Mizuki screamed back as he charged at Naruto. Naruto sidestepped the obvious right hook and countered with a devastating uppercut. Mizuki flew back to the tree he jumped from. Let me show you the real limit of my Kage Bunshin, Naruto said as he lifted his fingers into a practiced cross in front of his chest. Taiju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 2,000 Narutos stood around the poor man who thought it was good to threaten Konoha. Mizuki lasted not 2 seconds of the Naruto barrage, lying unconscious at the feet of Naruto. He had dispelled the clones as soon as Mizuki fainted. Sorry that I lost my temper in front of you, Iruka-sensei, he said. The icy aura is long gone. It's fine, how about some ramen on me? You've had a long day. Iruka's soft smile brought tears to Naruto's eyes. Yata, I'm gonna eat 10 bowls, Datbeo. He jumped up and down in happiness, and it brought the same joy out in Iruka, even if Naruto was going to eat him out on the street. The room was filled with high-ranking jonin as it always was at this time of year. It was time for team placements. And the Hokage had just given out the first 6 teams. None of the members were clan children, so no one had high hopes that one of them would succeed in the second hidden test. Neither were they particularly optimistic about the chances for the next team. They would get Kakashi Hitaki as their Jonin sensei. He had not passed a single unit since he started being a sensei. Team 7 will be led by Kakashi Hitaki, and consist of Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno and… The old Hokage was reading out from his list. Excuse me Lord Third? The Jonin in question interrupted the meeting. Yes Kakashi? The Hokage indulged his elite Jonin. Since the civil council was the one that placed Sasuke on my team and not by random chance, I would like to request the third member on my team. If that is all right with you, of course. He said as he bowed. Oi, oi. Just because you're some big shot doesn't mean you can make demands on the Hokage like that. A voice came from the back. Yeah, he is right, another said, agreeing with an annoying voice. Ma, I was just asking the Hokage a question. A bored-looking Kakashi answered the criticism. I'll allow you to make a suggestion, but you must have a valid reason for why this person should be on your team. The Hokage answered after a few seconds of deliberating. Thank you Lord Third, Kakashi said as he bowed again. I was thinking if we could put Naruto Senju on this team as well. The last Hitaki said, pandemonium as soon as the rest of the Jonin soaked in his words. Some accused him of wanting both founding clans under his thumb. Others called him a glory hog. The only ones quiet were Kurenai Yuhi, Asuma Sarutobi and Lord Third. Everyone quiet down. He didn't even need to raise his voice, everyone went dead silent. Kakashi, you will need a great reason for me to put them on the same team. We would at least like some semblance of equal teams. Lord Third continued. Well, except for my own personal reasons for wanting to teach Naruto. The prestige of a Uchiha and Senju team back together again. Also Sasuke is flight risk, and seemed to have a great relationship with Naruto. Kakashi said. The Hokage stroked his beard, thinking of a way to counter Kakashi's argument, or even if he should. Danzo made his presence known. You should let the Senju be together with the Uchiha. Hiruzen, he almost called him the weapon. He also thought he could use the relation between the two to gain more pawns in his little army. I'm still your Hokage, Danzo, speak to me like it. A small amount of killer intent leaked out. Of course, Lord Third. My apologies. Danzo bowed, seething on the inside. I will allow you to take the 2 Kakashi. But don't fail them just because, give them a fair chance. He finally said. Kakashi bowed and said, thank you Lord Third. Naruto sat in the middle of a room, with the Hokage and Iruka on the other side of a desk. You know the ninja registration form is a vital document held in high regard by our village. The Hokage finally said. I know, I read all about it, answered Naruto. Then why didn't you take it seriously? The third sighed as he put his head into his hands. A ninja's greatest weapon is the element of surprise, Naruto quoted. I believe you said that to me when I was but a child. Naruto said, pulling his arms up in a shrug. If portray myself as a goof, people will go easier on me and I'll live longer. He said as he brought his fist into his hand. That is true, but if you want to become Hokage one day, you're going to need the reputation as serious leader, you know. The third said thoughtfully. Naruto brought his hand to his chin and sat in deep thought for a second. Fine, I'll retake the stupid picture. He finally said. But JSUT, because you're annoying me with this, I'll take my revenge right now. Alright, no jutsu. A poof, and Naruto was a beautiful girl again. Hokage-sama, He blew a kiss at the old man who fell backwards by the force of his nosebleed. Iruka just barely managed to hold himself together. After the meeting was over and Naruto was about to leave, the door burst open, and a small boy no older than 10 stood there, shuriken in hand. "Today is the day that I defeat you, Gigi." As soon as he stepped into the room, he fell face first into the ground. Slightly embarrassed, the old Hokage pulled his hat over his eyes before saying, "Naruto, this is Konohamaru Sarutobi, my grandchild." Konohamaru was staring bug-eyed at the older boy in front of him. "So this is Naruto, huh?" was the thought that went through his head. "Hello there, we're done here, right?" Naruto asks. Just as he does, a new head pops into the room. "Honorable grandson, there you are, I have been looking all over for you," he said. "Yes, Naruto, we are done here, you can leave. However, could you come to my office tomorrow?" Lord Third says. Naruto nods and leaves. "Ebisu, you need to have better control over Konohamaru here," he continued in a stern voice. "Of course, Lord Third, my apologies. Honorable grandson, you should mix yourself up with people like him, or you will never be able to become the Hokage, but if you stay with me, you will get there in no time, you hear that, honorable grandson?" Ebisu started spewing. "I think he left to look for Naruto," Lord Third said in a calm voice. Ebisu panicked as he left the room to look for the small boy. Naruto walked into the Hokage's office. "So, do you know why I called you in here?" the Hokage asks, a serious expression on his face. "Yeah, that I know, it's because I know what I am," Naruto answers. "I like to read, and it came up. It made sense to what I have been feeling, and the disgust from the villagers who don't understand Fuinjutsu." He continues. "I see. I guess I owe you an explanation." The Hokage sighed. "The story starts on the day of your birth. The previous Jinchuriki, your mother, was to give birth to you, and it was all going well until you were out. Something happened. I don't know what, but my wife, a retired Anbu, was killed, and the 9 tails were out of your mother. Giving birth weakens the seal that holds it in. The 4th was held up fighting someone, the one we believe was behind all this. He was able to seal the 9 tails in you at the cost of his life." The Hokage explained. Tears were silently running down the whiskered cheeks of Naruto. "Who is my father?" he choked out. "I think you know," was all the Hokage could say. "I want you to say it. I want you to say that my own father condemned me to this life. I want to hear how someone could do something like that to his own child." The anger was evident in Naruto's tone. "Stop. Your father loved you more than you could ever know. He loved you so much. As did your mother. I never saw them happier than when they got the news that she was pregnant. Your father had so much faith in you that he made it easier for the fox to get out just so that you could master its chakra." The Hokage was crying now as well. Your father loved the village. He had faith that you would be seen as a hero who held back the fox. That was his flaw, not that he didn't love you or anything like it. He calmed down and sat down in his chair again. He hadn't noticed when he stood up. He couldn't ask someone else to do something he couldn't do himself. He calmed down enough to finish the sentence without any more tears. Naruto was speechless. He was loved, wanted. He wasn't some accident or demon or whore child or whatever the horrible villagers had said to him. "Now, what are you going to do with this information?" the Hokage asks. Naruto rubbed out the tears and said, "What else? I will become the greatest Hokage the village had ever seen, Datbeo. And I never go back on my word," he said as he put out his arm as if asking for a fist bump. "Good, because I need you to be wary of some people. Danzo Shimura, Homura Mitokado and Kaharu Utatane. My advisors, they have the civil council by their ear. Be especially wary of Danzo. I can't tell you why without him figuring out, but don't trust him." The Hokage warned. "Now enough serious subjects. Why, oh why did you teach my grandson that Kenjutsu?" Watching the Hokage's struggle for words was amusing to Naruto. "Kenjutsu? I didn't teach him the Kage Bunshin. He played innocent. No, I mean the Oraike no Jutsu. I just made it a Kenjutsu, it's too powerful." The Hokage explained. "I mean, who could say no to that kid? Haha." Naruto chuckles guiltily as he scratches the back of his head. The chewing out he got afterwards was the stuff of legends. The secretary staff passed it on to the newer staff members for years to come. It showed how mighty the third was as he could chew out the strongest Hokage without recourse. Today was the day of team placement, and Naruto felt both excited and anxious. He was walking down the main street. As he did, He saw someone he didn't expect, Ino Yamanaka. He forgot that the head of the Yamanakas run a flower store. He loved gardening. Obviously, some might say, if they knew about his Mokuton. He walks up to the girl, who is also going to the placements. "Hello, Ino," he says as he comes within speaking range. Ino jumped slightly, not expecting a voice from behind her. Especially not Naruto's. He had a bit of a reputation of being a prankster. But he didn't talk much to the people in their class, except for Sasuke. Many of the girls, her included, had a crush on the brooding Sasuke. They all were jealous of Naruto's relationship with Sasuke. Sasuke also seemed to change around Naruto, being more round and warm instead of the cold edginess he displayed to anyone else. Ino hadn't said anything in a while now, lost in her own thoughts. Naruto even took to wave a hand in front of her face. "Hello, Naruto." Ino wasn't rude towards Naruto. She didn't understand the hatred some civilian kids showed towards Naruto. She wasn't his friend or anything. God, no. She was just apathetic towards him. They walked next to each other the rest of the way to school in silence. Naruto didn't know what to say. He didn't talk to girls much except for Ayame, the daughter of the best cook in the village, according to Naruto. But it wasn't the same. It was more sibling banter than his peers. Just before stepping into the school ground, Naruto finally said something. "I'll visit your family store sometime." It took Ino off guard. She was getting used to the awkward silence between them. "You garden?" was the intelligent response that came out of her mouth. She almost hit herself for that. She didn't know him, so who was she to judge? "Yeah, you don't believe me?" A cheeky smile spread on Naruto's face. "No, it's not that. We don't see many guys in our shops, that's all." Her cheeks were burning as she threw out the first excuse she could think of. She turned away from Naruto not to give him the satisfaction of seeing her flushed cheeks. Naruto didn't know why, but he liked teasing the blonde girl. "If you say so. See you later," Naruto said as he ran into the academy. He was leaving an angry or at least embarrassed girl in his wake. Naruto was ready for whatever his new sensei would throw at him. As he entered his classroom, he reveled in the competitive atmosphere he encountered. He sat down next to Sasuke. The only one brave enough to do so. Cold eyes met anyone daring enough to try. The boys hated them, the girls swooned at them, but none of them was brave enough to take the seat. Naruto even slung one arm around the last loyal Uchiha. The envious eyes from the girls bored their way into his back. He ignored them. The boys didn't understand their out-of-place friendship and Naruto's effect on the emo. If anyone else would do what Naruto would do, they would probably die on the spot. "You ready to find out our teams, Sasuke?" The beaming smile accompanied the question, were blinding to anyone who saw it. The icy exterior Sasuke displayed outwards melted as quickly as Naruto put his arm around him, and the smile only made him smile himself. The girls melted at the soft, genuine smile on Sasuke's lips. It was at this moment a stampede interrupted Sasuke's answer. But his smile remained as Sakura and Ino barged into the room, both screaming, "First!" Ino saw Naruto with her crush and fumed slightly. That could have been her if Naruto wasn't such a jerk and left her flustered and angry. She could have sat next to Sasuke. Naruto saw her angry look and winked at her. He still didn't understand the urge to tease her. Sakura stomped over to the two of them. "What are you doing here, Naruto?" She demanded an answer. Sakura did as her mother had asked and treated Naruto like an outsider. "Sitting with my friend. I'm sure you have friends you like to sit with," Naruto said with some cheek. Naruto never really liked Sakura. She was too obsessed with Sasuke and too cold towards him to really have a real conversation. That sort of behavior didn't exactly endear her to Sasuke, who didn't like his friends mistreated. "You aren't friends with Sasuke," she scoffed, clearly in denial that a class clown would ever be friends with her perfect Sasuke. "I like to decide who my friends are myself, thank you." The ice-cold eyes leveled at Sakura was enough to make her stop in her tracks and snap Ino out of her inaction. She stomped over to Sakura and dragged her away. She sat down next to Naruto, and then she thought about what she had done. Ino didn't like what Sakura implied. Sasuke obviously really liked Naruto. Anyone saying otherwise didn't know Sasuke or were trying to undermine Naruto's influence on their precious Sasuke. Ino liked Sasuke, but she wasn't delusional enough to ignore the evident friend in Naruto. Naruto infuriated Ino. His obnoxious pranks were the central part of that dislike. Sure, she wasn't rude or anything, but that didn't mean she liked him. Now she was sitting next to a smiling Naruto, who obviously had something in mind, and Ino was not particularly interested in finding out what. So you wanted to sit next to me so much you dragged Sakura away. The smugness was so thick that Kiba Inazaka, who sat behind them, almost smelled it. Ino seethed out of clenched teeth. Sasuke enjoyed the show though he didn't show it. Iruka chooses that moment to interrupt them. Naruto mused that the door had impeccable timing. Everybody quiet down. Nobody quieted down after Iruka's first prompt as per usual. Everybody quiet down. Iruka yelled. Everybody promptly shut up. I can't tell you how immensely proud I am of all of you. It's been a true pleasure to teach you all, and I hope you defend our home with great vigor. He continued. Now to the team placements. Naruto zoned out for a while. Team 7 Sasuke Uchiha, Sakura Haruno. He got interrupted by a happy shout from Sakura. A pointed look shut her up. And Naruto Senju, your sensei is Kakashi Hitaki. He said as Naruto snapped out of his surprise and high-fived Sasuke beside him. Sasuke was shocked himself. Weren't teams to be balanced? A bored voice asked. It came from Shikamaru. The teams came directly from the Hokage, Iruka countered. Troublesome, the Nara answered back. Team 8 Hinata Hyuga, Kiba Inazaka and Shino Aburame your sensei Kurenai Yuhi. Iruka said. Team 9 is still in rotation. So our last and final team is Team 10, Shikamaru Nara, Chojiya Kemichi and Ino Yamanaka your sensei Asuma Sarutobi. Ino made a heavy sigh. Thank you again for these years. Your new sensei will come and pick you up, Iruka said before leaving. It was only Team 7 left. The other teams had gone away with their sensei. Naruto envied Ino and her team. Asuma was one of the first senseis who came. Sakura had moved to Ino's seat, and Naruto had now moved to the back of the classroom. So, much to Sasuke's annoyance, he had to deal with the annoying Sakura alone. It's been 2 hours now, and Naruto was about to start crawling on the walls. Sakura had stopped trying to talk to Sasuke, which Sasuke was happy for. His throat could only hn so many times. Naruto senses someone coming. From the presence alone, he had never felt someone like this. Not even Tora-sensei came close to the aura he felt. He swallowed. Sasuke saw Naruto's tenseness and got a little scared himself. The door opened, and an aloof-looking Cyclops with gravity-defying hair stood there. He had his Hite 8 over his left eye and a face mask covering everything except his right eye. He was wearing a standard Jonin uniform, with a blue undershirt and pants. Team 7? He said. The eye was the only thing that told them he was smiling. The three nodded. Good. Meet me on the roof in 5 minutes. The man disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Naruto's tension finally left him, and he drooped down into his chair. You alright? Sasuke asks. Yeah, I'm fine, just never felt anything like him before. Naruto answers. We should hurry up and get to the roof, Naruto continued. Naruto, Sakura and Sasuke sat on some stairs looking at their teacher. How about we introduce ourselves? The man says. Naruto was still a bit shaken from the first meeting with Kakashi. Can you hide your presence a bit? My whole body is screaming at me to get as far away as possible from you, Naruto whispered out. Ahaha, sorry about that. I didn't know you were a censor, he says with an insincere laugh. Naruto was shocked when the man disappeared from his senses. The only indicator that he was still there was that his eyes told him so. So introductions. Who wants to start? Their sensei clapped his hands together as he spoke. Why don't you start since we already know each other? Sakura spoke up. My name is Kakashi Hitaki. I like some things and dislike others. My dreams for the future. I haven't really thought about it. Kakashi's half-arsed response came out. The only thing we learned was his name. The three younger shinobi simultaneous thought with a clear sweat drop forming on their temples. Why don't you start Pinky? Kakashi interrupted their thought party. Pinky got a bit offended at the nickname but continued anyway. My name is Sakura Haruno, I like. And dreams about my future. A squeal interrupted her introduction and a blush spread on her face as she looked towards Sasuke. I dislike Naruto Baka. Sakura finished her introduction in a harsh tone. What did I ever do to you? Naruto sighed as he spoke. Sakura hmphed and looked away from him, and Naruto sighed again. Why did I have to have fangirl? Kakashi thought to himself and sighed, though no one noticed. Alright, emo then, he interrupted Naruto's and Sakura's little argument. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I like a few things, don't dislike many things. And I don't have a dream. It's more like ambition, and it's to kill a certain man. Sasuke presented himself. What I expected, Kakashi thought to himself while Sakura screeched about Sasuke being dark and mysterious. And last but not least, Blondie, Kakashi finally says. Naruto stood up to his feet and said, My name is Naruto Senju. I like ramen and Sasuke. I dislike traitors and people who can't separate the scroll for the kunai. My dream is to become the greatest Hokage this village has ever seen. Well, at least he has energy. Kakashi thought with a fond smile. Alright, so we're going to do survival training tomorrow, Kakashi said. We already did that in the academy, Sakura complained. Oh, but you haven't had me as your opponent. Kakashi lifted his finger as he countered her argument. You technically aren't real genin yet. The academy test is just a way to weed out those without talent. Kakashi says with an eye smile. Come on, I presented myself as a genin in a badass scene. Naruto whined. Kakashi laughed at him a bit. Well, you aren't gonna like the fact that 66% of those who take the real test fail. Kakashi openly laughed at the shocked faces on all their faces. See you tomorrow at 5 a.m. and don't eat breakfast, or you'll throw it up. Naruto was dragging his feet down the main street. It turned out he wasn't ready for anything his sensei was going to throw at him. As he walked past the Yamanaka flower store, he got new energy. He walked in, the bell pinged. Welcome, oh, it's just you, Ino says, who stood behind the counter. I didn't think you would actually show up, she sounded kind of surprised. She noticed the flowers looked a little more alive. Weird, she thought. Naruto walked around the store. He hadn't even replied to Ino's greeting or taunt. He was just basking in the ambient life of the store. He reached and touched a bud, and it felt a little dry. A slight frown spread on his face. You should water this one, and it will bloom soon, Naruto says. Ino looked at him. Shock was the only way to describe her feeling. Naruto just went against everything she thought she knew about him. He was so gentle and caring. She almost squealed. If she hadn't stopped herself, she would have actually. Naruto's frown turned upside down when he saw the healthy flowers, though. Was it you who took care of this one? He asked. Yes, Ino stammered out. She hadn't done that since the second year in the academy when talking to Sasuke for the first time. I can tell. It feels very attached to you. Naruto says. Ino feels a little confused. What do you mean attached? Ino tried to get him to elaborate. Naruto just put a finger to his mouth in a hush motion and winks. A smile spread on his face. Something about that smile was intriguing. She couldn't quite place what about it was so intriguing, but it was. Inoichi chose that moment to interrupt the young ninja wannabes. He opened the door to his home and flower shop, and he saw a young man feeling up one of the blooming flowers. He recognized him as soon as he saw the yellow mop on his head. He knew of the child's parentage. He had petitioned the Hokage for him to get adopted into his home. He obviously didn't get the adoption he wanted. Hello there, Senju-san. I hope you aren't here to prank our humble flower shop. Inoichi says. You need not worry about that. I only prank those who can't see a difference between a scroll and a kunai sealed inside it. Naruto answers. It seemed Ino was the only one who didn't understand what he was talking about because her father nodded as if he understood. What does that mean? She voiced her lack of understanding. Sorry, Ino, I can't tell you, Inoichi said to his daughter. I will go see your mother now, so continue your great work here. We will talk later, okay? Inoichi walked past her but not before placing a kiss on the top of her head. Naruto and Ino were alone again. Right, I forgot to ask. How's your team and sensei? Naruto broke the silence that had been building since Inoichi left. Shikamaru is as lazy as ever, and Choji follows him like a lost puppy. Asuma sensei feels reliable enough, but I have a feeling he is going to be as lazy as Shikamaru is, Ino huffed. She was clearly annoyed with her team members. At least you get along. Sakura straight up hate me for some reason. Probably something stupid like her mother told her to or something. Naruto says with a sad smile. Why do so many of the civilians hate you so much? Ino asks. She surprised herself with the forwardness of the question. The nine-tailed fox attacked and got killed the day I was born. Some see me as the reincarnation of the fox. It's a coping measure. Naruto answers her. He told the same lie as when he asked the same question to the Hokage. I see. Ino reflects. I'm afraid you don't. But that is okay. Naruto says. Ino looks at Naruto in a new light. The boy in his store was complex. A lot more complex than what she thought he was at first glance. She walks up and hugs him. It wasn't anything behind it, he just needed a hug in her mind. Naruto is shocked he had never gotten hugged like this before. He hugged her back. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke were quietly sitting on the poles on Training Ground 3. Naruto thought of his weird interaction in the Yamanaka flower shop the day before. Sakura was stealing glances at Sasuke while Sasuke himself got worried over Naruto. He wasn't this quiet for this long. If a girl hugs you out of nowhere, it is considered good, right? Naruto asks Sasuke. I don't have the best experience with girls, but I would say so, Sasuke answers. Why do you ask, Naruto baka? Sakura flicked in with her usual venom. Sasuke shot her a stern look. Ino hugged me yesterday, Naruto answers candidly. Ino? Why would she hug you of all people? Sakura continued with her tone from before. Sasuke started getting annoyed by her manner of speech now. That's what I have been trying to understand, Naruto sighed. I was pretty sure she was up there with you in the annoying scale, but yesterday she was different, Naruto says. A tick mark grows on the girl's forehead. She went in for a punch, but Naruto deflected it easily. She tumbled to the ground. Your taijutsu needs work, Naruto says offhandedly. She got up quickly and tried to fire another stab. Naruto dodged it this time. It was his turn to go in for a punch, and he would have punched her straight in the face if he hadn't had stopped an inch away. Sakura collapsed. She had never been hit before, and it showed. Why are you trying to become a kunoichi, Sakura? Because I swear if it to impress Sasuke, I'll beat you straight. A serious expression on his face. She doesn't understand, Naruto. She'll never understand. Sasuke came up from behind and put a hand on his shoulder. Naruto shrugged him off and sat down in a lotus position next to the pole and flashed through practiced hand signs, and an earth dome covered him. Sakura, you should start training as you mean it because you're going to get yourself or one of us killed. Sasuke put out a hand for her to grab. Sakura was shocked. That was the longest conversation she had ever had with Sasuke. She grabbed his hand. He pulls her up. You need to work on your taijutsu, strength and stamina, he says. Do some push-ups or something, he adds. Sakura swallows, then nods. She went up to a corner of the training ground. She went down and begins to do some push-ups. 3 hours later and Kakashi finally shows up. Naruto dropped his dome the second he felt the overwhelming pressure of Kakashi's chakra. Kakashi saw a sweating and tired Sakura. Reading her files, she didn't seem like the girl who pushes herself. This is weird. Well, are you guys ready for survival training? Kakashi asked with an eye smile. He then pulled out 2 bells. Your objective is to take one of these bells, Sakura interrupted with. But there are only 2 bells. Yes, there are, which means at least one of you will fail. And those who fail will be sent back to the academy. You have until noon. Any more questions? Kakashi's eyes smile as if he didn't just threaten them. Naruto didn't wait for any more instructions than that. Instead, he ran at Kakashi, who outmaneuvered him and kicked him in the back. TCH. Attacking before the start, Kakashi says while looking around for Sasuke and Sakura. They both jumped away with Naruto as a cover. Well, at least they can hide decently. Had I been a Chunin, I wouldn't have found them. Kakashi thought. What are you, a samurai? Naruto countered. Naruto jumped back to engage in taijutsu. A punch, kick, then an uppercut. Kakashi blocked all of them with relative ease. Damn, I don't think I can read. I got to focus on this fight. Kakashi thought with a smile. I guess we're not, Kakashi answers Naruto. Naruto continued with a variety of punches and kicks. Kakashi didn't attack back, but he countered every move Naruto threw at him. Alright, time wrap this up. He grabbed Naruto's hand, threw a punch for his face and pulled him under the ground using a jutsu. Only his head was over the earth. Ma, good job on making me sweat, Kakashi says, not looking any worse for wear. Oi, you are joking, right? You haven't broken a sweat. Naruto says, trying to get away. Sasuke was watching Naruto's fight with Kakashi and was deeply impressed. He knew Naruto was good since he was the only one who could keep up with him in the academy. He rethought his approach. He didn't think he could do this alone anymore. Kakashi just pulled Naruto under the ground. Sasuke pulled back. Kakashi was about to search for the remaining Team 7 members. Sasuke sneaked his way over to Naruto. "We are going to have to work together," Sasuke said to a bodiless Naruto. "You're right," Naruto agreed. "We're also gonna need Sakura," Naruto added. "You sure?" Sasuke asks. "Yeah, I think the test is meant to divide and conquer," Naruto confirmed. "Alright, I believe you are right." Sasuke proved his buying into the plan. Sakura was running. She had a Jonin hot on her tail. She regretted not training enough. Kakashi sat in a tree watching his female student struggle. He activated a genjutsu. Sakura stumbled and hid behind a tree. If Naruto couldn't get a bell, how the hell am I supposed to do it, Sakura thinks. She then heard a small voice. A voice she would recognize anywhere. Sasuke-kun's. She looked out from behind her tree. Sasuke was injured badly. He had a lot of kunai sticking out of his body. He was slumping down on a tree as a stilt since he had a broken leg. Sakura fainted on the spot after screaming her lungs out. Maybe I went too far, Kakashi thinks. There were only 15 minutes until the end of the test. Naruto and Sasuke looked all over for Sakura. They had already been looking for 5 minutes. They heard a scream a few minutes ago, but no sign since. They were about to give up and just take Kakashi on themselves. But Sasuke saw a tuft of pink hair peeking out behind a tree. He ran up to it, checking for any traps Kakashi might have left for them on or near Sakura's body. There were none. Sasuke woke her up by canceling the genjutsu placed on her. Sakura was frantic for a second. She searched for the injured Sasuke that she saw before passing out only to find a perfectly healthy Sasuke sitting next to her. She jumped up and hugged him. "I thought you were dead." A small but hearable voice squeaked out of her. "Like I would let anyone kill me before I get my revenge." Sasuke answers. "Come on. We need you if we're going to pass this test." Sasuke continued. 3 genin hopefuls were surrounding Kakashi. "So you're trying teamwork now, Remember, only 2 of you can pass." Kakashi says, trying to divide them one last time. "We figured out your little play," Naruto says in complete confidence. "Ho, do tell," Kakashi says. "You are trying to divide us. We need to work as a team," Sasuke says. Just as Sasuke started talking, Naruto dashed at Kakashi, fist raised. Kakashi countered. Just as Kakashi hit back, Naruto disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Kage Bunshin, huh? Kakashi thought. Sasuke took the opportunity to attack. Naruto jumped out from the trees and tag-teamed with Sasuke. A smile crept up on Kakashi's face. Their teamwork was sloppy at best, but it was there. Sakura was sneaking out of Kakashi's eyesight. Kakashi was distracted by the tag team. Sakura reached out, grabbed the bells and pulled. Naruto and Sasuke smiled and stopped fighting. Kakashi was surprised. "I guess you pass," Kakashi said in a sigh. Team 7 high-fived. Being a shinobi wasn't what it was made out to be, at least according to Naruto. Team 7 was stuck in D-rank hell. Since the bell test, Sakura had picked up her training. Kakashi may not like them yet, but they were growing on him. Team 7 was standing in the Hokage's office, waiting for their next mission. "Oi Gigi, can we have a mission that actually matters?" Naruto burst out. "Come on, Naruto, you need to show the Hokage some respect," said Iruka, who sat next to the Hokage. "It's alright Iruka. He has called me Gigi since he was a child." The Hokage tried to ease Iruka's worries. Sakura wondered what kind of relations Naruto had with the highest head in the village. Kakashi knocked Naruto on the top of his head while mumbling a sorry towards the Hokage. "While I agree he should show more respect, I also agree we should get a higher ranked mission," Sasuke agreed with Naruto. "Not you too," Iruka sighed. "Do you think they are ready for a C rank?" The Hokage asked Kakashi. "Well, we will never know until we let them loose. They are the heavy assault team of their batch," Kakashi said with a bored look on his face. "I must disagree. They have only been genin for a couple of months. These things take time," Iruka voiced his displeasure. "Let's try with a lighter C-rank mission to test the waters." The Hokage offered. "That's fair, right, Naruto?" Kakashi was pressuring Naruto to agree by leaning over him. Yeah, sounds good, Naruto mumbled uncomfortably. Both the Hokage and Sakura were giggling like schoolgirls at the scene. Bring in Tazuna, the Hokage said to Iruka. Tazuna was a carpenter. A drunk carpenter. An old, drunken carpenter. So it wasn't that surprising when he took one look at his protection and scoffed. So naturally, both Naruto and Sasuke took offense to that. So they were disappeared from the sight of Tazuna and placed a kunai on each of his cheeks. Tazuna sobered up instantly and swallowed hard. Now, Naruto, Sasuke. Killing our clients isn't very good for business, Kakashi said. Sorry, felt the pride of the founding clan's honor was being insulted. Sasuke half-heartedly apologized, and both he and Naruto pulled back. Tazuna released a breath he didn't know he held. Where do you need to go? Kakashi asked with an eye smile at their employer. Land of Waves, Tazuna said, still shaken up. We will meet up in an hour at the south gate. Kakashi simply announced. Team 7 was waiting at the south gate. Kakashi was late as always. Tazuna was also not here. Geez, when is Kakashi going to get a grip and stop being late all the time? Sakura whined. Hell will freeze over when that happens, Naruto sighed in response. He was leaning against a tree, his hite ate over his eyes, hands behind his head. His legs were crossed. On the other hand, Sasuke slanted on the gate, looking more ready for a fight if one was to happen. Sakura was sitting on a stone. Tazuna came before Kakashi. He loudly complained about ninjas and their work ethic. Naruto nearly slit his throat after the 5th minute. Kakashi came 6 minutes after Tazuna. So you guys ready to go? It came out of his mouth as if he was on time. Yeah, finally, Naruto said as he fixed his headband and stretched out any kinks. A couple of hours in, Sakura asked their temporary travel buddy. Are there not a hidden village in Land of Waves? Kakashi answered, no, there are not. Some of the smaller nations don't have the number of missions to support hidden villages. So they often go to the nearest big village to ask for help. They walked for a few minutes longer. They walked up to a puddle, and Naruto, having sensed the presence inside it, waved a sign to Kakashi, who nodded slightly, acknowledging Naruto's warning. As soon as they walked past it, 2 people jumped out of it and shot a chain each at Kakashi. The chains wrapped around his body and pulled him apart. One down, was the only thing one of them said. Sakura screamed. Naruto made eye contact with Sasuke, who nodded. They both took off, running towards one of the attackers each. Naruto jumped, avoiding a chain coming towards him. He took out a kunai from his pouch and slammed it down in a chain link, looking it in place. Shocked that a genin got the upper hand against him, the attacker froze as Naruto finally got close enough to punch him, and he clogged him straight in the jaw. The attacker stumbled into Kakashi, who was okay. Kakashi already had the other attacker in a headlock after Sasuke was able to lock away his chain. Sasuke was slightly jealous of Naruto. He couldn't knock his attacker out before Kakashi showed up, but Naruto could. A brief annoyed expression was visible, but he hid it quickly. Good job everyone, Kakashi said with a smile. Sorry Sakura, I needed to know if these guys were after us or our employer. Kakashi explained. Sakura slumped onto her butt. Sure, she had gotten stronger, but seeing Naruto and Sasuke in action just hammered home how far behind she was. So fellows, who were you targeting? Kakashi asked with a smile, but he tightened his grip. The attackers broke almost immediately. Kakashi walked over to Tazuna. You have some things to tell us if you want our continued protection. He said threateningly. Alright, I'll talk. Tazuna broke under Kakashi's heavy eye. Land of Waves is in financial ruin right now and it's all Gato's fault, he continued. You mean the business tycoon Gato? Kakashi interrupted. The one and the same. He is killing Land of Waves with exuberant fees and high taxes. He even took the daimyo captive in his own palace. If I can't build the bridge to completion, my poor country is going to die and I can't get there without your help. But I understand if you want to go home, I lied to you after all. My poor daughter and grandson will just miss their old man if I die on the way home. But I completely understand if you want to go home. Tazuna put on a bit of a show as he explained his position. Kakashi-sensei, as much as I hate manipulators, Naruto shot a dirty look towards the bridge builder, who didn't even have the decency to look guilty. But I hate people who take advantage of others more. We should do something. Naruto finished his thought. I agree with Naruto. Sasuke said, eager to get a chance to show up his rival. What do you say, Sakura? Kakashi didn't want to finish this mission. These were Chunin in level, and he doubted they would be the strongest ninja they would face on this journey. I agree with the boys, Sakura said, unsure if this was a good idea. Well, I guess I got outvoted. You are lucky, Tazuna. If I had my way we would have left you here. Kakashi said as he started walking towards Wave. Team 7 and Tazuna were sitting in a boat. One of the Land of Wave's citizens was steering the rowboat. Thank you for doing this, Tazuna says to the steerer. Don't worry. Just because most are afraid to help you doesn't mean we all are. He answers. An impressive bridge came into view. Damn, was the only thing Naruto could say. Impressive, right? Tazuna replies. They soon reached the shore. Keep your senses up. The next opponent will be even stronger than the first ones. Kakashi warns his team. Naruto and Sasuke ready to kunai. They continued on the path. Naruto snapped and fired his kunai into a tree. A scared bunny jumps away. Why did you scare that poor innocent bunny? Sakura scolds Naruto. Someone's cowering me, Naruto counters while looking around for the presents. Everyone, get down. Kakashi screams. A giant sword flew over them and lodged itself in a tree crown. A figure jumps and stands on the handle. Shit, this guy is as much of a monster as Kakashi, Naruto mumbled. Only Kakashi heard him. Well, if it isn't the Rouge Ninja, Zabuza Momochi. Kakashi identifies the newcomer. Kakashi, of the Sharingan. Zabuza shows some of his knowledge of Kakashi. I make it a point to memorize all Rouge Ninja that are Jonin and above, Demon of the Mist, Kakashi counters. He raises a hand to his Hite 8. Sorry, but can you hand over the old man? It would spare a lot of blood if you did it peacefully, Zabuza threatened. Guys, get into the Manji formation, protect Tazuna. I'll take care of this guy. Kakashi instructs his genin. He pulled up his Hite 8, and instead of another black eye like his right, there is a red one with 3 black tomo dividing it into thirds. A scar ran from above where the Hite 8 now rested and below his face mask, straight over his eye. The whole of Team 7 was shocked by the reveal. Fight me, is all Kakashi says. Well now, I didn't expect to see the Sharingan this early. This is an honor, Zabuza says, clearly amused that he will have a great fight. Oi, sensei, don't you think it is a bit of a cheat to have a Sharingan if you are not an Uchiha? Naruto adds with little thought. Missing the hurt expression on Kakashi's face. What's so special about the Sharingan anyway? Sakura asks, genially curious about the power Sasuke could hold. The Sharingan can see through any technique, be it Genjutsu, Taijutsu or Ninjutsu. But that's not all it can do, Sasuke explains. Well said, it can also copy the technique. Zabuza adds to Sasuke's explanation. A thick fog was descending all around the clearing. When I was in Anbu of the Hidden Mist, certain information in the bingo book says that you copied over a 1000 jutsu using that eye of yours. That's how you became known as the copy ninja, Zabuza says. Is Kakashi-sensei some sort of super ninja? Sakura thought. Naruto was moving to take his place in the ordered position. It was a death sentence to try and get in between 2 high-level jonin. Sasuke soon fell into pace with Naruto, while Sakura was basically standing in it already. They all drew a kunai each and held it in front of them. Sasuke was still seething because Kakashi had something exclusive to the Uchihas. Let's end our talking here, Zabuza says. It looks like I have to kill you before I finish my job here, though, isn't that right, Kakashi? He continues and jumps down, standing on the water in front of them. He can stand on water? Sakura screamed in shock. Ninpo. Kirigakure no Jutsu. Zabuza unleashes his technique, and the fog becomes thicker. The genin knew they were standing only a few meters away from Kakashi, but they couldn't see him. 8 spots. The larynx, the spine, the lungs, the kiver, the jugular and subclavian veins, the kidneys and the heart. Now then, which spot would be good? A disembodied voice says to the group. Kakashi flares his chakra, clearing out a small area of the fog. I can't feel him anywhere. The fog is laced with too much chakra. Naruto warns Kakashi. Sasuke is focusing on something else entirely. The overwhelming killing intent of Jonin had him shaking in his boots. Don't worry, Sasuke, I will protect you with my life. I won't let anyone on my team die. Kakashi says and turns towards Sasuke and smiles, calming Sasuke down. I wonder about that. Zabuza suddenly appears in the middle of their manji formation. Kakashi turns and runs at him, but Naruto is quicker, lodging a knife in the man's ribs. Naruto was shocked. He had never killed anyone before. The man in the middle burst into water. Mizu Bunshin, huh? Naruto thinks, still shaking after. Another Zabuza appeared but was stopped by a knife to his neck by Kakashi. Don't move, Kakashi threatens. It's over, he proclaims. Zabuza laughs. It's over, you say? You don't understand, do you? You won't be able to beat me just by making me like a monkey. No chance, he says and continues to laugh. But I must say you're both good. He compliments Kakashi and Naruto. Taking down one of my Mizu Bunshin at your age is impressive, he elaborated. But it won't be enough. Because I am no fool. He says and appears behind Kakashi. The body Kakashi had been holding hostage explodes into water. TCH another fake. This mist is really screwing with my senses. Naruto scoffs. Zabuza takes a giant swing towards Kakashi's head, but Kakashi dodges the strike by ducking under it. Unfortunately for Zabuza, the sword's path took it to the ground. But he switched his grip and kicked Kakashi onto the body of water. Zabuza takes his sword and runs towards Kakashi but stops suddenly. Caltrops, he noticed. He scoffs and jumps over the trap and into the water after Kakashi. Sakura was shocked that someone was able to kick her sensei so easily. His taijutsu is also really good, Sasuke bemoans. As Kakashi rises from the water, he notices that it feels cumbersome. Too cumbersome. HMPF. Fool, Zabuza appears behind him, standing on the water. He did the hand seals for the Suiro no Jutsu. Kakashi soon found himself inside a water ball. The water was too pressurized to move in. You're caught, Zabuza laughs at his prisoner. This time Naruto starts laughing uncontrollably. What's so funny, brat? Zabuza snaps at Naruto. Naruto stops laughing for a second. I can't believe I didn't sense it before. Man, this fog really is annoying. You just fell for the same trick as Kakashi did. Naruto says, and before Zabuza could react, the body he was holding hostage disappears in the water prison. Kakashi swings a kunai at his throat from behind. Zabuza drops the jutsu and somersaults away from the knife. Now, Naruto, you aren't supposed to tell the enemy an attack is coming. Kakashi scolds Naruto. Sorry sensei, I just found it too ironic not to laugh at. Naruto apologizes sincerely. Well, you do have a point, Kakashi says. Zabuza was trying to piece together how Kakashi had fooled him. Just when he flared his chakra, that was when he copied my jutsu. He scoffs and readies himself for round 2. Zabuza and Kakashi stand a few meters away from each other in the middle of the body of water. Kakashi's Sharingan focuses on Zabuza's form. I'll show you. Zabuza screams as he starts going through a lot of hand signs. Kakashi copies his every move, including naming the seals as they go along. They both finish on the same on at the same time. Finally, both yell out, Sweden, Suiryuden no Jutsu. 2 massive dragons begin to rise from the water. They dance around each other for a while until they crash into each other, destroying both. Water washes over Team 7 as a large amount of water from the jutsu flood the entire area. Sakura was surprised to see ninjutsu on this scale. Zabuza thought something was off. He knew the Sharingan could copy movements, but he had never heard that it could do something simultaneously as the original caster. Kakashi followed all his moves, even the ones that were unnecessary, precisely at the same time. This guy, my movements, he's perfectly reading them. Kakashi finishes his thought. He's reading my mind? Zabuza panics. Blast him. He's giving me that barren, evil eye, right? Kakashi finishes it again. Ha, you're just copying. You're a pale imitation. Zabuza scoffs. Both yell at the same time. You won't be able to beat me. You monkey. I'll shut that copycat monkey mouth permanently. Zabuza yelled out and began doing hand signs. Just as he did, he could see a shadow behind Kakashi starting to form. It was an image of himself. Genjutsu? He thought, but diagnosing the shadow didn't stop him from stopping weaving the signs. Kakashi took advantage of Zabuza's stop and finished his signs. Sweden. Daibakufu no Jutsu. He yelled out, and a massive amount of water shot out and crashed into Zabuza. After a good minute of water washing over Zabuza, it finally stopped. Kakashi threw 4 kunai, and they all hit a limb each. Kakashi was sitting in the tree Zabuza was leaning against. Why? Can you read the future? Zabuza asks. Yeah, and your future is death, Kakashi answers, and just as he was about to finish him off, 2 senbon hit Zabuza in the neck. Looks like you were right. A young person in a mask says. Kakashi checks Zabuza for a pulse. When he didn't find one, he pronounced him dead. Thank you. I have been waiting for a chance to kill Zabuza. The masked person says. By the look of that mask, you're a hunter ninja from Kirigakure. Kakashi states. You're well informed. The hunter ninja confirms. I'll be taking Zabuza's body with me. It holds too many secrets. The hunter ninja says and disappears with the corpse. Kakashi could hear a loud smack from Team 7. Naruto had hit himself pretty hard because a red mark was already viable. What are you doing? Sakura asks tiredly. Punish myself for not sensing properly. The mist is still here but I should have felt a lot more. Naruto stubbornly says. Kakashi starts to stumble, but Naruto runs up and catches him before he hits the ground. Thank you Naruto. I'll see you guys later. Kakashi says just before passing out. We should hurry to Tazuna's place, Naruto says, and everyone agrees. The bridge builder's house was a simple 2-story building, probably larger than the average house in the land of waves. Kakashi woke up. He was lying in a futon on the 2nd floor. Naruto and the rest of Team 7 were helping in the kitchen downstairs. Kakashi could hear them. He liked the sound. It meant they were okay. He surprised himself with that thought. Kakashi hadn't cared about anyone new since Minato and Kushina died. He felt like a walking curse. Killing everyone he came close to. He always thought guys' days were numbered. But these kids had wormed their way into his heart. He wasn't blind to their faults, though. Sakura needed to get over her fangirling. Sasuke had a jealousy streak a mile wide, and Naruto's attention span should be measured in milliseconds. Naruto was the first one to come to check up on their sensei. When he saw he was awake, he yelled at the rest of Team 7 to go upstairs. They all sat at Kakashi's side. You guys need to get stronger. I'll train you until we meet Zabuza again. Kakashi says, catching their attention. What do you mean meet Zabuza again? He is dead, you said so yourself. I also didn't feel any life from him when the hunter ninja took him away, Naruto questions Kakashi. His 2 teammates nodded as if to agree with Naruto. That hunter ninja is part of the reason for why I believe he is alive. Sakura, what can you tell us about hunter ninja? Kakashi asks his female genin. Well, from what I remember they are a specialized part of Kirigakure's Enbu division. They specialize in hunting rouge ninja. Sakura explains. That's exactly what this one did, so what's so suspicious about it? Naruto says, trying to understand Kakashi's suspicions. Well, hunter ninja are supposed to destroy the body in the field to limit errors, yet this one took him away. It also used senbon, a hard weapon to kill with. It's essentially impossible to kill someone with senbon in the neck. But you can put someone in death-like state. Kakashi explained. Alright, so we're going to have to fight Zabuza again. Sasuke, who had been silent until now, says. You're right, probably that hunter ninja as well. Kakashi says. You said you're going to train us, but you can't even walk. Naruto says. Haha, my cute little genin, I don't need to walk to train you. Kakashi says. Team 7 sat in a clearing. Kakashi walks into view, and he is on stilts. I am going to show you how to climb trees without hands, Kakashi says as he starts to walk up the side of the tree in front of him. Naruto sighs. He has done this since he began the academy. Sasuke and Sakura were staring wide-eyed. Kakashi was now standing upside down. Now it's your turn, Kakashi says with a smile. Start by pushing chakra into the soles of your feet, Kakashi instructed. Sakura managed to get to the first branch on her first try. Sasuke had more problems. He got halfway between the ground and the branch. Naruto sat still, flipping a kunai in his hand. Kakashi walks up to him. Come on, Naruto, you do it too. He says to the bored teen. Alright, but I know how to do this already. Naruto sighs. Naruto walks up to the tree and starts ascending. He didn't stop for any branches and then sat on the top. Well, would you look at that, Kakashi states. Come on then, Naruto, let's get you started on something else, Kakashi screams out to Naruto, and Naruto jumps down. Kakashi leads him away. Sasuke got annoyed and started trying even harder. Sakura was a bit worried about him. Kakashi and Naruto were standing near a body of water. You are going to do the same except on the water. It is harder since you need to fluctuate the amount of chakra, Kakashi explained. I am going to check up on the other ones, he says and disappears in a swirl of leaves. Alright then, let's do this, Naruto says to himself. Kakashi sits at the dinner table, and all his students sit next to Kakashi, all of them exhausted. Kakashi has watched his students train over the days and was most pleased with their progression. However, Inari, the carpenter's grandson, observes the exhausted ninja and scoffs. Why do you even try? You are all going to die anyway. Gato is too strong, he says as tears roll down his cheeks. I wouldn't count on it. I won't die until I become the greatest Hokage, Datbeo. Naruto points at him, a severe expression on his face. Inari's tears intensify. How can you say that when you haven't lived a cushy life in your village? You haven't suffered at all. Not like I have, Inari rants. You call this suffering? You have a roof over your head, a mother and grandfather who love you and food in your belly. I was hated by my village until recently. I was kicked out of an orphanage at the age of 5. I had to find my own food and shelter. I had no one except a Gigi that couldn't do anything directly for me. Do you have slightest idea how much I would have sacrificed to have just one day with my parents? Naruto is now standing, tears not far off. Inari runs upstairs to his room, crying. I'm going outside, I need to blow off some steam. Naruto says to his sensei. Kakashi just nods. As Naruto left, Sakura leaned over towards Kakashi. He must be exaggerating, his life couldn't have been that bad, right? I mean, he is a senju, right? The same as Uchiha, right? Sakura scoffs. She was ignoring the evident emotion in Naruto's voice. That sort of emotion is not easily faked. No, he was hated by everyone until Lord Third found his connection to the first Hokage, since it has been better but some still hate, Kakashi explains. I am not proud that I didn't do more for Naruto. But I had my own orders at the time, Kakashi sulks. Naruto was sleeping outside. A person is picking herbs a bit away from his sleeping form, and the person walks up to Naruto and reaches out to strangle him. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Naruto's voice snaps the would-be attacker out of their trance. Naruto opens his eyes, and a beautiful girl meets his eyes. She wore a pink kimono and had long silky black hair. Her brown eyes were soft. She was cuter than Sakura but not as pretty as Ino. Where did that thought come from? He surprised himself with the comparison to Ino. I didn't mean to scare you. Living in Wave makes you do strange things, the girl says, snapping Naruto out of his musings. It's alright. It can be crazy out here. My name is Naruto, what's yours? Naruto says as he sits up. My name is Haku. Are you a ninja? Your headband is nice, the now identified Haku says. You think so too? I love it. Naruto's inner child is shining through, eyes sparkling, and he strokes the headband fondly. You must have someone important in your village, right? Haku asks, smiling at the teenager. Yeah, my Gigi. He isn't my real Gigi but he is the closest thing I have to family. Naruto says. A fond smile spreads on his face. Then you will become strong. I believe that you can't become truly strong unless you have someone precious to protect. Haku encourages Naruto as she is about to leave. And also I am a boy, Haku says as she leaves the clearing. Naruto just laughed at himself. He felt so stupid. It has been a week since Team 7 ran into Zabuza and the Hunter Ninja, and Kakashi was finally up and about. However, Kakashi feels a bit paranoid about the watch they were about to take at the bridge today. Naruto had come home late the night before, so Kakashi let him sleep in. Then, he gathered up Sakura and Sasuke. The trip to the bridge was uneventful. But as soon as they stepped on the bridge, an unnaturally thick fog descended around them. This is the Kirigakure no Jutsu, right? Sakura asks. Yeah, we better be careful from now on, Kakashi answers. He was right because as they got a little further down the bridge, unconscious bodies were lying strewn all over the place. The smell of blood soon invaded their senses. Well, what do we have here? Zabuza's eerie disembodied voice proclaimed. 4 Zabuzas suddenly stood in front of them. Look at your poor students. He is shaking, the disembodied voice says, referring to Sasuke. Sasuke smirks. I am trembling with excitement. He grips his kunai harder while he sends a glance towards Kakashi. Go ahead, Sasuke, Kakashi says with a sigh. After the go ahead, Sasuke started running towards the nearest clone, and he sliced it. When he was done with the first one, then he went after the second one. He didn't stop until there were no clones around them left. Look at him go, another voice says. Two figures begin to get visible. One was Zabuza. The other was the hunter ninja that supposedly killed him the first time. Impressive for someone his age even if one clone only is 1/10 as strong as the original, Zabuza says. Looks like I was right. You were working together, Kakashi interjects. Take care of the boy and the girl. I'll handle Kakashi, Zabuza orders. Yes, sir, the hunter ninja accepts. Naruto was just waking up. His training went a little overboard. He couldn't remember the last time he slept in this much. Then, just as he had that thought, he panicked. Where are the others? He thought. He jumps up and gets ready. He runs downstairs and sees Tsunami, Tazuna's daughter. The others wouldn't happen to be at the bridge, would they? Naruto asks. He was jumping up and down and looked like an excited puppy. Tsunami couldn't help but laugh at the teenager in front of her. Yes, they left not that long ago. She answers. Okay, see you in a bit. Naruto runs out. He gets about 500 meters away when he feels two presences making their way towards the town. He stops and does a 180 running back as quickly as possible, just if something is up. When he comes back to the house, he sees an unconscious Tsunami and Inari running right at the two men responsible. Naruto creates a cage bunshin and Kawarimi no Jutsu with Tsunami while his clone switches with Inari. The two thugs didn't have time to get shocked since Naruto clogged them at the back of their heads so hard they knocked them out. Good job, Inari, you're really strong standing up for your mother like that. Sorry that I yelled at you the other day, Naruto says earnestly. No, it was because you yelled that I was able to do it, Inari says, smiling with tears in his eyes. Naruto patted his head. I'll leave this to you then, Naruto says with a big smile. Yeah, leave it to me, Inari says. Naruto smiles towards Inari, then starts to run towards the bridge. Sasuke is not having a good time. At first, he was able to keep up with the masked ninja. But, after the first scuffle ended, the masked ninja then pulled up a sort of cage made of ice mirrors. Inside the mirror cage, the masked ninja could move a lot faster. Fast enough that Sasuke couldn't even see him anymore. Sasuke got punctured by Senbon flying at him in irregular intervals. Sasuke didn't know what to do. Then a poof of smoke erupted in the middle of the cage. That show-off, Sasuke thought as he realized who it was. Naruto was standing there looking at the masked ninja. So, what did I miss? Naruto asks with a smile on his face. Kakashi had a hard time against Zabuza. The mist made it hard to see Zabuza, even with the Sharingan. The man he was against just laughed. Kakashi's hand was bleeding since he had to stop Zabuza's sword from cutting down Tazuna and Sakura. Zabuza was having the time of his life. After all, having a powerful ninja like Kakashi on the back foot was a great testament to his own skill. Sasuke was both happy and angry that Naruto had shown up in the way he did. Naruto gave him some much-needed breathing room by taking the focus towards himself, but that also meant that Sasuke had to admit that he needed the help to begin with. Naruto could see the masked ninja move. Not clearly, but he could see the blur move between mirrors. The chakra felt familiar, but he couldn't place it. He would worry about that after the fight. Now he had to focus. He starts by running up to one of the mirrors. He sees the blur moving towards him. He jumps out of the way of the punch that the blur sent after him. Impossible. He can see me? The masked ninja asks himself. Sasuke was also impressed. He could only see the aftermath and couldn't get as close to the mirrors as Naruto had. Naruto lands next to Sasuke. Shit, I couldn't get to the mirrors, Naruto swears. Why am I so far behind Naruto? I need to get stronger if I am to kill him. Sasuke thinks. Sasuke, I'll need your help if we are to get that ninja, Naruto states. Fine, Sasuke answers. Throw a fireball at him when I try to hold him down. Don't worry, even if you hurt me, I'll heal it in a second. Naruto lays out his plan and starts running towards the mirror again. Not letting Sasuke counter the strategy. Naruto creates a shadow clone, and both run towards the nearest mirror. The blur moves towards them. Naruto nods at his clone, who nods back. Naruto jumps towards the blur and grabs it. He Kawarimi with his clone. Sasuke was shocked. Naruto's efficiency in carrying out his plan was beyond anything he had ever seen in someone his own age. Naruto reminded him of him. He fires a Kaden Gokakyu no Jutsu at the ninja in the clone's grasp. The fireball slammed into both of them. The clone puffs into a cloud of smoke as soon as it hits. The masked ninja gets flung out of his mirror cage. The mirrors cracks and breaks, so do his mask. Haku's beautiful face was lying there unconscious. Naruto got up from his crouched position. "Good job, Sasuke. I couldn't have done it alone," Naruto says with a smile. Sasuke just scoffs at him. The Uchiha was beginning to see the clear difference between their skill level. The same smallness he felt around him. Naruto ignores the cold response. He had gotten it before. It had been a while since he had gotten it from Sasuke. It hurt quite a bit. Sasuke scoffs and walks over to the unmasked ninja. "Stop, Sasuke. I'll take care of him," Naruto says. Sasuke sends him a glare SP intense. It awakens his Sharingan. Naruto was taken back. "Sasuke, your eyes," Naruto says. Sasuke didn't feel any different at first. Then he saw every little movement Naruto did as he took back the slight stutter when he saw the eyes. Naruto was hurt that Sasuke awakened his Sharingan when he was angry at him. Sasuke was walking towards Tazuna and Sakura. Naruto walks up to Haku's unconscious body. "So what are going to do with you?" he says as he sits down next to the boy. Kakashi finally had an idea to end this battle. He pulled out a small scroll from his pouch. "I'm going to end this now, Zabuza," he said. "And how are you going to do that?" Zabuza laughs at him. "Like this." Kakashi screams. He used the wound on his hand to smear a thin line of blood across the entire scroll. Kachiyose. SD no Jutsu. 9 dogs jumped up from underneath Zabuza and bit him down on him. "I'll show you how I got the reason why I am feared as more than a copycat. I'll show you a jutsu of my own," Kakashi says as he starts going through the hand signs. Reikuri, he shot forward and pierced Zabuza's chest. Zabuza coughed up blood. "Damn you, Kakashi." He soon died. "Well, would you look at that? The undefeatable devil of the mist wasn't so undefeatable." A new voice states. Kakashi looks over to the voice. A diminutive man was standing there with a small army of thugs and getting ready to fight off the troops. Haku had begun to stir and was greeted by Naruto sitting next to him. "I failed to protect Zabuza, didn't I?" Haku asks. "I guess." Naruto answers. "You should kill me," Haku concludes. "I am not going to kill you, and I won't let you kill yourself either," Naruto says. "But I failed in my duty of tool," Haku argues. "You are not a tool, Haku. You are a living, breathing human," Naruto argues back. "But, he took me in, trained me, fed me, he did everything for me." Haku was crying now. "You don't need to define your life based on what someone else wants. You should become your own person," Naruto argued back. "I want to be his tool, I want to keep him safe," Haku says. "You want that because you haven't had anything different," Naruto says. "Come to the village with us, I'll show how you can live an ordinary life not becoming any sort of tool," Naruto continues. "I can't," Haku answers. "Why don't we stop the small army that is here and then we can talk," Naruto says. Naruto and Haku walk up in front of the small army. "Naruto, can you handle this alone?" Kakashi asks. "Yeah, I'll end this," Naruto says, a serious expression on his face, and he punches his open palm. Kakashi sits down. "Good, because I'm spent." "Sakura, Sasuke, watch over Tazuna," Kakashi orders. Sasuke was fuming. Gato was about to betray Zabuza-san. "That's unforgivable," Haku says. Haku starts going through some hand signs, and the water around the bridge starts to levitate and form into ice senbon. Naruto forms a cross in front of him. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto matches the number of thugs. The Narutos and Haku starts running towards the thugs. And it was a slaughter. Only 10 of Naruto's clones got dispelled, and those thugs who managed to do that were easily taken care of by Haku. Gato is shaking in his boots. These 2 teenagers are devastating his army. They were walking up to the small man. All he saw was 2 beasts with glowing eyes. "Wait!" a small voice screams. Naruto and Haku look over to the voice. Inari was standing there with the entire village behind him. They were equipped with anything they could find. We should let them take care of their tyrant, Naruto says and leads Haku away from Gato. The townspeople were not friendly to their tormentor. Team 7 is on its way home. They had parted with Haku, who was on his way to help out in the civil war in Kirigakure. Naruto is feeling great. Land of Waves is safe and sound. Tazuna and his workers had completed the bridge connecting the Land of Waves and the Land of Fire. They also named it after Naruto. It was Enrei's idea, so it was appropriately childish. Naruto was also happy to be on his way home. Haku gave him some things to think about before he left. Why was he trying so hard to get strong? Does he really only have one meaningful person in his life? Why is Sasuke so mad at him? But all these things could wait until he got home. Haku had first been very sad about his master's death after a burial and a pep talk from Naruto. Then, he had agreed to honor his masters by continuing his mission and fight for the Bloodline Rebels. Team 7 arrived at a bustling Konoha in the middle of the day. Naruto and his team said their goodbyes. Naruto wanted to go to his favorite flower shop. However, he wasn't sure if it was to meet Ino or see the flowers. Probably both. As he weaves through the busy streets with practiced ease, he soon finds himself in front of the flower shop. He walks in. When he isn't met with a girl his age, he is slightly shocked. Instead, he sees a woman with brown hair and eyes in her middle ages. "Welcome," she says in a warm and kind voice. "Thank you. You must be Ino's mother, right? You look younger than I expected," Naruto asks and compliments. "Why, thank you, and I am. My name is Inomi. You must be Naruto," she says while holding up a hand covering her mouth. The flowers in the shop had gotten more lively since Naruto stepped into the shop, something Inomi noticed. "How did you know?" Naruto asks. "Ino speaks a lot of a blonde boy with whisker marks," she answers. She was filling away something behind the counter, so she didn't see Naruto walking up to the counter. "Really? What does she say?" Naruto says, a smile forming as he sets his elbows on the counter and rests his chin in the palm of his hand. "Oh, I couldn't say that. She would be quite mad." Inomi says. A teasing smile spreads on her face. Come on, now I've got to know," Naruto says. Ino's day couldn't have been worse. She had done a D rank, which was bad enough, but she also had to drag her lazy teammates and sensei. Now she was spent. She just wanted to go home and sleep. She walks through the streets of Konoha, almost bumping into the people in her way. She soon stands in front of her home and flower shop. She is surprised to see her mother talking at length with a customer. Most of the time, they get intimidated by her regal aura and stick to more short and polite conversations. Come on, now I've got to know," Ino hears a familiar voice say. She panics. She did not want Naruto to know of the rantings she had made to her mother. He was already teasing enough. She opens the door and sees that her ears didn't play a prank on her. Inomi sees her immediately after the small chime goes off. The smile said more than what she would ever want to know. Ino runs over to her mother and pushes her away from the counter. "Well, Ino, if you wanted to tend to the shop that much, you could have just said so," Inomi says, a teasing smile on her face. "No, I just don't want you to talk to him," Ino seethed out of her teeth. "My, he is such a nice boy," Inomi says, a hand on her cheek. "Just get out." Ino shoved her mother back into their home. Ino was now alone with Naruto in the shop. "So you talk about me with your mom," Naruto says teasingly. Ino blushes slightly. "I just complain about how annoying you are," she says, crossing her arms and looking away from Naruto. "Ho, is that so?" Naruto asks. He reaches out to the plant he reached out to before. "I've taken good care of since you last saw it," Ino says. "I can tell," Naruto answers, a small smile on his face. Team 7 stands on a bridge waiting for Kakashi. He hadn't told them why he wanted to meet them. Naruto sits on the railing in a lotus position. Sasuke is leaning on the first pole of the bridge, a bit away from Naruto. Sakura is standing on the bridge but leaning on anything. Kakashi was only 15 minutes late at this point, so Team 7 didn't count on him coming for at least 45 minutes more. But contrary to their expectations, a swirl of leaves clued them that Kakashi's shinsuing to them. "Hello, my cute little genins," Kakashi says as soon as he becomes visible. "You are not as late as you usually are. Who are you, and what have you done to Kakashi?" Naruto says as he raises a finger pointing accusingly at the supposed Kakashi. "You wound me, Naruto." Aren't you supposed to be a pretty good sensor? Kakashi says as he lays a hand on his chest to show where he is hurt. Anyway, I am here to talk to you about the upcoming Chunin exams, Kakashi continues, recovering from his banter with Naruto. He pulls out 3 pieces of paper. These are your entry slips. You are supposed to go to room 301 at the academy at 1300 hours in 2 days. Good luck, he says as he leaves in another shunshin. Naruto doesn't have anything to do, so he walks down the street. He soon felt 3 presences behind him. Oi, Konohamaru, you aren't fooling anyone with the square rock look, Naruto says as he stops. Then, an explosion went off behind him. Konohamaru and 2 other kids stood on all 4, coughing. Konohamaru, you used too much gunpowder. The other boy says. As expected of my boss, Konohamaru say, ignoring the other boy's misgivings. Come on Konohamaru, aren't you going to introduce me to your friends? Naruto asks. I am the cute and Moegi, the girl introduces herself. Naruto's sweat dropped. I am Udon, I like algebra, the other boy says. And I am Konohamaru, Konohamaru states as if Naruto didn't already know. And together we are the Konohamaru Corp. They all finished together with choreographed poses in the end. They were all wearing matching goggles on their head. The same ones Naruto had been wearing before he became a ninja. Nice introduction, Naruto says as he takes out his thumb. I knew you would like it, boss, Konohamaru says, rubbing his finger under his nose in a satisfied manner. Anyway, why don't you play ninja with us, boss, Konohamaru says. Sorry but I can't. Naruto starts. Sakura, who had come out after the explosion in front of her family store, interrupts him. Being a ninja should disqualify you from playing ninja, she sounds smug. Konohamaru ignores the pink-haired woman, leans in, and whispers, Oi, boss, is she your? To Naruto. Naruto took a few seconds before understanding what he meant. No. No way, he answers. Yeah, you could do a lot better than her. Her forehead is huge, Konohamaru says loud enough for Sakura to hear. She gets furious at him. Konohamaru, you should run, Naruto says. Konohamaru didn't like Naruto's female teammate. The fact that he is running away from her at full speed probably didn't help. He ran around a corner and ran straight into a boy in his teens. Oi, watch where you are going, the teen says as he grabs his collar. Calm down, he didn't see you, said a teen girl that was standing next to the boy holding Konohamaru. No, I am going to teach him a lesson, the teen boy says. Sakura comes around the corner. She stops running as soon as she sees the poor boy she was trying to discipline held up by his collar. She didn't know what to do. I would put him down if I were you, Naruto says, leaning on the fence, and he had a slight smile on his face. Sakura didn't even realize Naruto appeared next to her. Huh, and why should I do that, the boy says. You are standing on Konohagakure ground as a foreigner and treating our Hokage's grandson. You got some balls on you, Naruto says, his smile gone, and he kicked himself off the fence. A cold, calculated look in his eyes shocked Sakura. She had never seen Naruto like this, not even in Wave. Naruto got ready to fight the boy. Stop this, Kankuro, you are embarrassing our village, a new voice says from behind a tree. He steps out from behind the tree. He had messy red hair and a large gourd on his back, and heavy bags under his eyes. The boy, now named Kankuro, drops Konohamaru quickly. Naruto drops his stance. Sasuke, who had walked in on the standoff. He walks up and stands next to Naruto. I am guessing you are here for the Chunin exams, Naruto asks the red-haired boy. Obviously, what is your name? You interest me, the red-haired boy states. Is it not common decency to introduce oneself before asking for someone else's? Naruto counter. Fair enough. My name is Sabaku no Gaara. Gaara introduces himself. Naruto. Senju, Naruto offers in return. The other boy and girl do a sharp intake at the mention of his clan name. Gaara just smiles maniacally. Take your teammates and leave. We will see each other in the exams, Naruto says, seeing the expression on Gaara's face. Gaara reluctantly left. Why did you let them leave? Did you see him? He wanted to kill us. Sasuke screams in Naruto's face. Fighting here would be detrimental. Too many chances for innocents to be hurt, Naruto counters. Do you seriously think yourself so powerful you could fight off 3 of them without hurting anyone else in the background? All without knowing anything about their strengths or weaknesses, Naruto continues and point towards Konohamaru and Sakura. Sakura felt incredibly sad about being talked about as a liability. Sasuke scoffs and walks off. Naruto huffs and walks off in the other direction. Konohamaru and Sakura were sitting near the fence, not quite sure what to do next. 2 days went by, and Team 7 was on its way to the Chunin exams. Sasuke and Naruto had not been talking since the incident with the Suna team. Sakura is worried about their teamwork. They walk up the first set of stairs and meet a big crowd. The door in front of the group said 301. 2 Chunin stands in front of the door blocking the door. Like we would let any of you fools become Chunin, one of them says. They don't even realize we are on the 2nd floor. It's obviously a genjutsu, Sasuke scoffs and is about to tell all the other participants. He is stopped by a hand on his shoulder, courtesy of Naruto. Naruto just motioned him to get upstairs. Sasuke pulls away from Naruto and is about to yell at him. But he is stopped by a long brown-haired boy with lavender eyes. He was part of the Hyuga clan, if those were anything to go by. Drop the genjutsu, he says in a smug voice. Way to not understand the assignment, Naruto says as he rubs the back of his head in a lackadaisically manner. What did you say, punk? The Hyuga says. It was a first test to see if they were worthy of doing the Chunin exam, Naruto says. The 2 guards stiffen. This kid just figured out their mission in 2 minutes. The other test participants made their way towards the actual test location. The guards also left. The Hyuga was taken aback. He hadn't thought of the possibility of a test before the test. But then, his teammates walk up to his side, a girl with 2 buns and Chinese-style clothing and a boy with a bowl cut and green onesie with orange leg warmers and bandaged arms. What is your name? The Hyuga asks Naruto. Seriously, what is with all you people asking for names before giving up your own? Naruto states. Fine, my name is Neji Hyuga, the Hyuga states. Naruto. Senju, Naruto states. No way, Neji's female teammate exclaims. So cool, the weird bowl cut says. Naruto looks towards him and gives him a nice guy pose. The weird-haired guy gains stars in his eyes. He is just as cool as Guy-sensei. The girl, however, lost a bit of her earlier reverence. So you are the Senju everyone has been talking about, Neji states. I can't see it, he continues. Well, I wouldn't let you know all my tricks now, would I? Naruto says. Come on, let's go. Neji motions his team up the stairs. Team 7 walks up slightly behind them. Actually, can I try to fight the Uchiha? Neji's male teammate asks. Just don't get yourself hurt, Neji states. I won't, his teammate answers and runs off to find Sasuke. He soon finds them. What do you want? Sasuke asks. I want to test you. As the strongest genin in Konoha, I would like to see you fight. Uchiha Sasuke, my name is Rock Lee. Also, I want to show Sakura-san what I can do, Lee states as he gets into a fighting stance and then winks at Sakura. Sakura panics. Everything about him is too intense, she thinks and shivers. Oi, don't do anything stupid. The test is about to start. Naruto warns Sasuke and places a hand on his shoulder. He completely ignores Sakura's struggle. Don't tell me what to do. Sasuke answers as he shakes off his hand and gets into a fighting stance of his own. Don't say I didn't warn you, Naruto backs off. Sasuke took off as soon as Naruto walked away from him, and before Sasuke could react, a fist came crashing into his arm. He put it out of instinct. He slid back and activated his Sharingan. Naruto had an impassive look on his face, and Sakura was shocked that someone other than Naruto could get such a punch-off on Sasuke. Lee took the offensive, and Sasuke was forced to defend himself. However, he couldn't find an opening, even with the Sharingan active. Just as Lee was about to unleash an attack, someone yelled at him and blocked the kick from Sasuke. You idiot, you know you shouldn't use that attack on people you consider comrades, a turtle says. A summon? Naruto thinks as he amusedly watches the spectacle in front of him with a small smile gracing his lips. Actually, it was the reverse version, Lee tries to explain. You idiot, another voice screams and punches him on the head. He was clad the same way Lee was, except he had a Jonin flak jacket. He looked remarkably like his student. The only real difference is age. They soon start to cry tears of happiness, and a sunset's image forms behind them. That is enough, Lee. You don't have to say anything, Lee's sensei says. Lee just cries more while calling out, Sensei. Then they hug, and the sensei sets an unreasonable penalty of running 100 laps around Konoha. Naruto's smile widens. What is this genjutsu? I can't seem to break it. These guys are pretty funny, he thinks. Sakura was shivering at the image, and Sasuke was seething at his loss to a guy like him. So you are skipping the Chunin exams? Naruto recovers as they are about to walk away. Oh, that's right. The sensei says abashed towards Team 7. You will be punished after the Chunin exams for pulling out a move like that. He says as he turns towards his student, who just accepts that with a salute. The sensei turns to Team 7 again. How is Kakashi? He says. You know Kakashi? Sasuke asks. Yeah, I know him well. Some might even say we are eternal rivals, he says as he points to himself using his thumb. That sounds like such a lie, Sakura burst out. What are you saying? Guy Sensei really is. Lee defends his teacher. They finally learned his name now as well. That's fine. Actions speak louder than words anyway. Guy Sensei interrupts his student. By the way, my record is 50 wins and 49 losses. He says as he appears behind Team 7. Truth be told, I am stronger than Kakashi, he says in a confident voice. Team 7 couldn't believe their eyes. Even Naruto was surprised by the show of speed. How about that? Guy Sense is awesome, isn't he? Lee says from across the room. This time around, Lee caused the trouble. Out of consideration for my face, forgive him. Guy Sensei says. Of course, we don't want any trouble either. Naruto says. He was the fastest one to come out of his shock. Good. You guys should probably go to the classroom pretty soon. Guy Sensei says. Guy Sensei bid his farewell and disappeared in a poof of smoke, so did the turtle. Sasuke. Sorry I lied, but I am not the strongest genin in Konoha. That title belonged to my teammate. I'm entering to defeat that person. And you are one of my targets. Please prepare yourself for the exam. Lee says and runs away to the exam room, leaving a shocked Team 7 behind. I warned you. Naruto says and starts to walk away. Team 7 was walking away from their weird encounter with Rock Lee and Guy Sensei. Oh, you all came. I am glad. A familiarly aloof voice calls out to the team. What do you mean, Sensei? Sasuke asks in an annoyed voice. Well, I wasn't sure if all of you would show up. He says, looking towards Sakura. She folded under his gaze. You wouldn't have been able to compete if you didn't have a full team. He elaborates. Why didn't you tell us that? Sasuke says through gritted teeth. Naruto nods along with him. Well, I wouldn't want you to force your teammate to come, Kakashi explains. Fair enough, Naruto accepts the explanation. Well, that is all I wanted to say. Good luck, Kakashi says before vanishing in a poof of smoke. Team 7 walks into the exam room. Oh, so you are finally here? Naruto, Shikamaru says. Ino jumped on Sasuke. Sasuke-kun, did you miss me? Ino says. She was rubbing her cheek against his. Naruto-kun, he hears a small voice. He looks towards it and sees Team 8. Oh, Team 8, you're also doing this? Naruto asks. Apparently, all the rookie teams are doing the Chunin exams for the first time in forever. It's so troublesome, Shikamaru says while rubbing the back of his head. You guys really should learn to quiet down, a new voice said as he walked up the group of rookies. Who are you? Kiba asks, the distrust clear in his voice. My name is Yakushi Kabuto, and you are making a target out of yourself, Kabuto says as he pushes his round glasses up his unremarkable face. The only thing that stood out on his body was his silver hair, which he kept in a low ponytail. Naruto's senses told him that Kabuto had a lot more chakra than the average combatant. I have information on the people taking the exam and on the exam itself, if you want to listen. Kabuto sits down in front of the rookies. Oh, so you have done the exams before? Shikamaru asks the older man. Yeah, this is my 7th try. Kabuto answers while he rubs the back of his head and smiles embarrassingly. TCH, so the tests are really that hard. Troublesome, Shikamaru adds in a scoff. And why should we trust you? I have never seen you in the village before, Naruto asks while eyeing Kabuto. Sakura hit lightly on the shoulder. Oi, Naruto, don't you see his headband? He is obviously a shinobi of Konoha. Sakura scolds him. No, he is right to be skeptical. But I promise I don't have any ill intent in helping you. I just want to see my fellow Konoha shinobi do well in the exams. Kabuto explains while raising his hands in defeat. Enough. I want info on Sabaku no Gaara. Naruto Senju and Rock Lee, Sasuke exclaims. Oh, so you know their names. That makes things easier, Kabuto says as he takes a card and places two of his fingers in front of him in a one-handed ram seal and spin the card in the other hand. The blank card starts to show some information. Here is the information on that Gaara fellow, Kabuto says. His teammates are Tamari and Kankuro, and their sensei is Baki. Not bad, he has an unknown number of D rank, 7 C ranks and 1 B ranks, all without getting a scratch, Kabuto exclaims. Naruto Senju, ninjutsu specialist. Teammates Haruno Sakura and Uchiha Sasuke, Sensei Hitaki Kakashi. 10 D ranks, 1 C rank and a solo B rank mission. He also became the hero of the wave not that long ago. How did he manage to do all that since he graduated? Kabuto exclaimed. All hard work and grit, Naruto pumps his bicep and has a cheesy smile on his face. But he was worried since the B rank should have been secret. When the hell did you do a B ranked mission, Naruto? Kiba exclaims. Can't tell, Naruto answers Kiba as he puts a finger to his mouth in a shushing motion and winks. Kabuto looks up at the blonde and forces a smile. The rest of the rookies sweat drop at his behavior. Except for Hinata, who is blushing slightly. And finally, Rock Lee, taijutsu specialist. No, his other skills are next to zero. Teammates, Ten and Hyuga Neji. Their sensei Maida Guy, 20 D ranks and 11 C rank. They are probably the strongest team here, from what I've heard. Kabuto says. Sasuke scoffs at that. There are genin here from Konoha, Suna, Kusa, Aim, Taki and Otto. All of which are exceptional for genin in their own village. Except maybe the team from Otto. They are a small village which formed not that long ago. Kabuto explains. Kinda makes you lose your confidence, Hinata says with a worried expression on her face. Ino scolds her for her lack of faith in herself. The strongest team here, and just because we formed recently doesn't mean we are weak. Ha, a voice says as it comes closer. The man who spoke up was slumped over and had a bandaged face. Only his left eye and eyebrow was visible. He had a straw raincoat on his back and long sleeves, way longer than his arms. His headband had a musical note on it. Naruto hadn't seen it before. He guesses it is from Otto. He looks towards the man and readies a kunai. You could add Dosu and my team to the list of future Chunin. The now named Dosu exclaims as he stretches his arms and pulls back the sleeve. A weird contraption sat on his arm. It was big and bulky and covered his whole forearm, and the top was littered with holes. He ran towards Kabuto and swung his arm. Kabuto easily dodges, but soon after, his glasses shatter, and he falls to his knees and pukes. What happened? I thought he missed? Sakura exclaims. Silence. You guys can kill each other in the other part of the test, a male voice said from the front of the classroom. He was with a large number of ninja. Dosu stopped his assault on Kabuto. Sakura and Ino tended to a sitting Kabuto. Kabuto thanked the two younger girls. My name is Morino Ibiki, and I'll be the proctor of the first test. So sit down. You have been given your seating order. The voice in the front of the room commands. Naruto and the rest of the rookies sat down. Welcome to the Chunin exams. This is the first test. This will be a written test. You will start with 10 points, and for each wrong answer, you will lose a point, Ibiki explains. As you can see, we also have multiple Chunin watching your every move. They will write you up for any cheating they catch, and if they do, you will lose 2 points. Ibiki continues. If you are to reach 0 points, you will fail, and you and your teammates will be forced out. Ibiki further explains. You have 45 minutes for the first 9 questions, and you will be given the last question then. Any questions? Your test starts at 9 exactly. Ibiki finishes. Begin, Ibiki says as the clock strikes 9. Team 7 was having a hard time. Well, the boys were. Sakura was always the smartest out of the 3. At least when it came to book smarts. So she blasted through the questions. Sasuke soon figured out that you were supposed to cheat and copied a shinobi's hand movements with his Sharingan. Naruto similarly figured that you were supposed to cheat, but he didn't have such a luxury as the Sharingan to just copy someone's movements. So he sat down and crossed his arms to think about how he would cheat without getting caught. Time was running out. It had already been 25 minutes since the start of the test, and Naruto had not found a suitable way to cheat, and his answer sheet was still blank. Hinata, who sat next to Naruto, saw his struggle. Pissed. "Naruto, you can look at my test if you want," she whispered. Naruto was shocked. He didn't realize Hinata sat next to him. "Shit, she nearly made me fall off my chair. Talk about not having a presence," Naruto exclaimed in his mind. "No thank you, Hinata. That would be too obvious and we will get caught immediately. But seriously, thank you," Naruto whispers back and shoots her a smile. Hinata blushes and looks away. At random intervals, the proctors were calling out those who had failed. 15 minutes passed, and Naruto was starting to panic. He was beginning to bank on the last question now. There were only 5 minutes until they would be given it. Sasuke and Sakura were done with their 9 questions. They were hoping Naruto was able to answer at least one question. The other man on Gaara's team came back from his bathroom break. "I hope you playing with your doll was enlightening," Ibiki says, eyeing the genin, and the guy visibly swallows. "Go back to your seat," Ibiki orders. "Before I give you the last question, I will give you some extra rules," Ibiki states. "First, you don't need to take the last question." Ibiki holds up a finger as he explains, counting the rules as he describes them. "What would happen if we don't take it?" the girl who was with Gaara asks. "You and your team will be forced to leave," Ibiki answers. "Then, of course, we are going to answer it," someone screamed out. Most of the participants agreed. "I am getting to that. The second rule is, if you answer the question wrong, you and your team will forfeit your ability to take the Chunin exams ever again," Ibiki says as he pulls up a second finger. "You are lying. Some have done multiple tests already," someone else shouted. "Quiet, they never had me as a proctor," Ibiki says in a raised voice. "Or are you questioning my authority?" Ibiki says. He raises an eyebrow, and a creepy smile spreads on his face. "Raise your hand if you are not taking the final question. You have 5 minutes to decide," Ibiki says finally. At first, no one gave up. But soon, some did. Few at first, but they grew in number. Finally, about 26 teams were left, and Naruto felt the heat. Could he put enough faith into himself to manage to answer this last question, right? Sakura was also worrying about Naruto. She knew he would be too stubborn to give up on his own. She also knew they would be able to do this again in 6 months if they just gave up now. She was about to raise her hand when Naruto bursts out. "Like we would fall for such an obvious trap. Don't underestimate me. And even if I can't become Chunin, I'll be the first Genin Hokage this village has ever seen," as he slams his desk and an earnest smile on his face. The few who had doubts felt them vanish as they watched the loud blonde. Some even cracked up and laughed despite the tense situation. Sakura felt stupid for not believing in Naruto, even if it was just a second. This guy, he saw right through the test. He will be fun to watch in the future, Ibiki thinks to himself. No point in dragging this out, they all have their heart hardened by the blonde boy. Ibiki believes as well. "You all pass," Ibiki says. "But what about the last question?" Someone yelled out. "Do I really have to spell it out, fought you?" "That was the last question," Ibiki answers. "But this blonde brat ruined my test." Ibiki continues, a small satisfied smile forming on his lips. "Take this lesson well. Information can be even more valuable than life sometimes. If you are going to be Chunin, you will need to remember it well," Ibiki says as he unties his bandana Hite 8 and shows his scarred scalp. Everyone drew a shocked breath. An explosion sounded through the entire classroom. A young adult stood next to Ibiki. She was only wearing a beige trenchcoat and orange skirt over her mesh armor, and she wore the standard ninja sandals but guards over her feet and shins. She had her hair in a high ponytail, not unlike Shikamaru, but hers were a dark purple. On a banner that had somehow managed to make itself above her and Ibiki stood, the in-single Proctor Mitarashi Anko. "You let 26 teams pass? You are losing your touch, Ibiki," she says. "Anko, you are early. Also, this is an interesting batch," Ibiki says as he looks towards the clock with a smile. "It just hit 10. And show some respect to your seniors," Ibiki continues. Yes, I know. But don't worry, I'll cut them down in half." Anko waves off Ibiki's criticism with a sinister smile. "Meet me in 25 hours at Drawing Ground 44, if you're late you will get disqualified," she says to the group, still smiling. "You are not allowed to meet up with your Jonin sensei to get information. That is all. Dismissed, see you tomorrow," she says. Ibiki was staying late to clean up the classroom when he saw the paper of one Senju Naruto. It was blank since Naruto didn't come up with a way to cheat. To think he passed my test with a blank paper, what an interesting guy. He thinks to himself with a slight smile on his lips. The 44th training ground was littered with dangerous animals and plants. Naruto had read about it when he was younger. Apparently, the fauna got altered by the massive chakra permeating the air. The Shodai Hokage formed it shortly after the village's founding. Anko loved this place, so she spent most of her time away from the villagers and other ninjas. They didn't want anything to do with her anyway, saying that it is only time before she joins back up with her treacherous teacher. Of course, she never would. He could burn in hell for all she cared. Why she was thinking of that snake, she didn't know. There is something kind of creepy about this place. Sakura complains as she shivers just looking into the forest. The fence around the forest was tall and had multiple warnings on the opening. Naruto had to agree with Sakura even if he felt oddly in tune with the big trees. It was almost like they were calling out to him. It probably has to do with the first's Mokuton, he muses. This place is called the Forest of Death, you'll soon release why. Anko says with a sadistic smile as she stands in front of the Chunin hopefuls. Naruto didn't like the tone she used, so he mocks her by doing a silly little dance and repeating what she just said. That kind of threat won't work on me one bit. I'm not scared, Naruto then exclaims. Anko took offense to Naruto's chipperness and disregard for her warning but just smiled and said, "Really? You have a lot of energy." Then before anyone could seemingly react, she threw a kunai towards Naruto. She had seen many like him in her days, loudmouths who are nothing but bark. Having been trained by an Anbu since he was 6, Naruto caught the handle on instinct, shocking even himself. He had never been able to do that to Kakashi-sensei's nor Tora-sensei's throws. Sasuke seethed at Naruto's skill. He couldn't catch that kunai, even with the Sharingan. See it, yes, avoid getting hit most likely but not grab it. Sakura was starting to get used to Naruto doing ridiculous stuff by now, but this was something else. To be fair, Anko had thrown it at a mere Chunin level. But she was also shocked that he was able to catch it. It seems Ibiki was right. There are some interesting participants in this batch, she thought with a smile. She appeared behind the loud blonde. Kabuto and his team, who stood next to Team 7, saw the feat. Kabuto's face stretched into a sinister smirk that he had to hide under his hand. "My kunai?" she asks as she reaches past his still raised hand. Naruto had not seen her move this time. "So that is your real speed, huh?" Naruto thought before an overwhelming sense of dread flooded his system. Worse than he had ever felt. His senses stretched themselves out on instinct after Anko disappeared from his line of sight. He dropped the kunai before Anko could take it from him. She saw the look on Naruto's face. It looked like he had just watched the whole village die in the most gruesome way possible. She picks up her kunai from the ground while muttering about weird blondes while also wondering what got him so spooked all of a sudden. Naruto walks over to his teammates. "If you ever run into the kunoichi over there, run, get away as fast as possible," he says as he pulls them into a one-armed hug. "What is it, Naruto? I've never seen you so spooked before," Sakura asks, concerned for her teammate. Naruto looks towards her. "Just do as I say and run away from her if you come across her," he says. The panicked look in his eyes makes Sakura shut up and nod. Naruto's sudden shift in energy weirded Sasuke out. He would heed the warning, though. Naruto had not been wrong yet when it came to his sensory abilities. "Well, before we start the second exam, I have to pass these out to you," Anko says in front of the group again while pulling out a stack of paper from inside her trenchcoat. "It is a consent form before you can take part in the test. You have to sign this," she explains. "Why?" someone from the crowd asks. "From here on out, corpses are going to come out. I have to get your consent to that. Or it'll be my responsibility," she says with the same sadistic smile she had before. The participants just understood how dangerous this test was going to be. "Well, I'm going to start the explanation for the second exam. In a word, the limits of your survival will be challenged." She starts her explanation. "First, I'll give you step-by-step instruction on the terrain of this training field. Training ground number 44 is surrounded by 44 locked entrance gates. There are rivers and a forest and a tower in the middle. It's about 10 kilometers from the towers to the gate. In this confined area, you will go through a certain survival program," she continues. the contents of which are, anything goes scroll battle. She finishes. You will be given one of two scrolls. Heaven and Earth. You will need both to pass the test. In other words, at least half of the teams that made it through the first test will be knocked out of this one. She says, her sadistic smile was back on. Bring both of the scrolls to the center, and you pass. Easy, right? She clarifies. Also, you have 120 hours on you to get both scrolls and get to the towers, she adds. What are we going to do about food? Choji exclaims. Be self-sufficient. There are plenty of animals in the forest you can eat. Anko waves away his whining. You also need to still be a 3-man cell by the end to pass. So should anyone on your team die, you fail. Also, you can't open the scrolls until you are done with the test. Anko adds. What would happen if you read it before? Naruto asks. The color in his face had returned slightly. Well, why don't you open and find out? Anko answers, but the smile turns more teasing this time. There are times when Chunin will be given secret scrolls where you will not be allowed access. So see this as your training. Anko says seriously this time. You can switch 3 signed consent forms for a scroll over there. She points towards a small tent with 3 Konoha ninjas sitting in. After that, pick an entrance, and all gates will open simultaneously. She says and sighs. Finally, just a word of advice. Don't die, she says in a harsh voice. Team 7 were making final preparations to enter the second exam. Naruto has recovered from his chance encounter with the scary competitor and is back to his energetic self. He was all but bouncing off the walls. Sasuke and Sakura were glad he was back to his usual self. They felt pretty stupid. Of course, he was going to be okay. It was Naruto they were talking about. Naruto was still nervous and scared of the kunoichi but chose to act as he usually does to ease his teammates' worries. They were now just waiting for Anko to start the exams. They had their heaven scroll and stood ready to run into the forest as soon as they opened the gate. We now start the second test of the Chunin exam. Anko screams out at exactly 10:30. All the teams jump into the forest as the examiners open their respective gates. The first thing Team 7 decide to do is look for water. They soon find a small river and set up a small campsite near but not on the riverbank. Team 7 hears the screaming voices of other groups. Idiots, attacking without doing recon, Naruto thinks to himself. They did not have a strategy to hunt down other teams, instead, setting up some traps near their camp. Naruto was also searching the vicinity with his sensory abilities. All in all, almost no genin would be able to attack them. Sakura is feeling anxious. The lady Naruto was afraid of his lurking around in the same forests as them. Even if they were safe from ordinary genin, that label couldn't be applied to someone that made Naruto shake in his sandals. A few hours pass. Naruto and his team had just hunted and eaten lunch. Naruto paused in the middle of his sentence. We need to move, he says as he looks into the thickness of the forest. What do you mean? Sakura asks. The freakish woman and her team are coming, and I don't feel anyone else near. So I presume she is here for us. Naruto answers as he starts to remove any trace of them being there. Sasuke had begun doing that as soon as Naruto's warning came. They soon started jumping away from the site. Naruto clicks his tongue. She is good. Way too good for a genin, Naruto states. Get ready. She is here. Naruto warns, and just as he says that, a giant gust of wind comes flushing from behind. Team 7 lost their balance. In the middle of their jumps, Sasuke flew into the tree in front of him. Naruto missed any trees and flew away from the other members of Team 7. Sakura had more luck. She managed to stick to the branch she had landed on. As soon as the boys got bearings together, they hid in the bushes under the trees. Sakura followed suit and hid as well. You guys, go have fun. I'll go alone, a female voice states, and the 2 companions to the creepy girl disappear. Now then, the weird girl says as she licks her lips, and a sinister look comes over her eyes. Sakura snuck away from her hiding place. She needed to get to Sasuke. She knew she didn't stand a chance alone. She soon found Sasuke squatting near the tree he hid near. Sasuke, what are we going to do about that kunoichi? Sakura whispers to him. I don't know. She is a lot more powerful than I thought, he answers. Naruto then comes running towards them. Oi, guys, you okay? Naruto asks in his normal speaking voice. Yeah, we are fine, Sakura whispers back. Sasuke, on the other hand, throws a kunai towards Naruto. He easily dodges. What the hell? Why did you do that? Naruto screams. TCH, seems it won't be that easy. Sasuke scoffs. What are you doing towards Naruto? Sakura bursts out. Naruto is smart enough to whisper when there is an enemy nearby, and that movement was totally unlike Naruto's. Show your real self, Sasuke just says. Kukuku. That's how it is, huh? A creepy laugh comes from Naruto's mouth, and an equally disturbing smile spreads on his face. A giant poof of smoke erupts from Naruto's body, and the unnerving Kunoichi sat in his place. She was wearing a straw hat and a weird purple belt, otherwise it was an entirely unspectacular outfit. She had a Kusagakure Hite 8 around her forehead. Naruto is sitting near the trunk of a tree, a fair bit away from Sasuke and Sakura. He held his head. Ouch, that one hurt. Naruto spoke out loud to no one in particular. Then, he hears a hissing sound in front of him, and he snaps his attention there. The hissing came from the largest snake he had ever seen. In all the books I've read, there has never been any mention of snakes this huge in the Forest of Death. It must be a summon. This means the creepy girl is the one summoning them. I must get back to Sasuke and Sakura. Pronto, his mind rad-up fires. The snake launches at him. He manages to dodge the mouth, but the snake shoots out its tail and encircles Naruto as soon as he gets away. The snake then swallows him whole. The Kusa Nin pulls out her team's scroll from a pouch behind her back. You want our Earth Scroll, don't you? She asks in a condescending voice. You have the Heaven Scroll, right? She asks in the same voice. She then swallows her scroll using her freakishly long tongue. Let us begin our battle for the scrolls, she says in a more harsh voice and realizes some of her killing intent. The overwhelming pressure of the ki froze Sasuke and Sakura. Sasuke had never felt anything like it. He even saw himself die in 100 different ways. Genjutsu? No, this is just killer intent. Even Zabuza's killing intent was but a fraction of this. He panicky thinks. Sakura was too paralyzed even to think. Sasuke falls to his knees and pukes. What the hell is this woman? Sasuke asks himself. Sakura? He manages to ask for his teammate. She had also fallen to her knees, but she was crying with an empty look on her face. It's no good. We have no choice but to flee here. He thinks. It's no good. I can't move a muscle. He adds. If we can't get away, we die. His panicked look shifted over to their tormentor, who just looked at the two and smiled evilly. Naruto was struggling from inside the snake. He knew he would dissolve if he couldn't find a way to get out. Then he got an idea. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he says as he puts his fingers in the seal. 200 Naruto's poof into existence. The snake's stomach explodes, and the snake vanishes in a giant poof of smoke. Now to find the others. There, Naruto says to himself as he spreads his senses across the forest. He. Can't move already? The Kusa Nin says to Sasuke and Sakura. Move. 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 Sasuke tries to tell his body. She is going to kill me. He adds. He pulls out a kunai with shaky hands and manages to get to his feet. What do you intend to do with that? The Kusa Nin asks. Sasuke panics. He doesn't know what to do. Don't worry. I'll end this in a second. The Kusa Nin says as she pulls out two kunai of her own and starts walking towards the two of them slowly. I wanted you to entertain me more, she says as she raises her arm with the kunai in to throw. It is too bad, she says nonchalantly as she throws the kunai. Naruto was jumping on the trees. You better be alive when I find you, he thinks to himself. He thought back to the time in the hospital after the Uchiha massacre. He had tried to be there for him, but lately, Sasuke had begun competing with him. It hurt, especially when he unlocked his Sharingan while mad at Naruto. Naruto just wanted to go back as friends again. Sasuke and Sakura had managed to get away from the Kusa Nin. At least for the moment. Sasuke had stabbed himself in the leg, hoping the pain would bring back the ability to move. And it did. He managed to pull Sakura with him, and they were now hiding behind a tree not that far away from the Kusa Nin. How do we flee? Was one of many questions running around in his head. Sakura was afraid she had never seen Sasuke like this before. He was so terrified of the Kusa Nin that he didn't know what to do with himself. Then, a colossal snake snuck up behind them. It bit down where they sat, but they managed to get away. Sasuke's Sharingan had activated, but he didn't know that. The snake coiled away around a tree for another attack. It launched itself at Sasuke, who panics and screams, "Don't get near me." He saw the terrifying Kusa Nin in its eyes. He threw shuriken into its mouth, and it died. Sasuke sat on a branch heaving, he was tired. That damn Kusa Nin was exhausting to deal with. The scales on the snake began cracking up, and the Kusa Nin started emerging from it. Don't lower your guard, not even for a moment. A prey must always stay tense and try to flee desperately. In the presence of a predator, she says threateningly. Her freakishly long tongue licked her lips. The Kusa Nin starts coiling around the nearest tree trunk like a snake and gets ready to attack Sasuke. But before she gets close enough, shuriken and kunai land in front of her. "Yo, sorry it took so long. I had to deal with something," Naruto's cocky voice echoed. "Yo, sorry it took so long. I had to deal with something," Naruto's cocky voice echoed. The Kusa Nin stops in her approach. "Naruto!" Sakura screams out in relief. "Naruto, you have to run. She's even more powerful than I anticipated," Sasuke screams at Naruto. "You think I'll leave you behind? Baka," Naruto answers back while sticking his tongue out. Sasuke looks up towards Naruto's Sharingan activated. Now is not the time for games. She is on a completely different level. Sasuke roars back in an angry voice. "I know, but she caught up to us before. What makes you think we can get away now?" Naruto asks in return. "Ho, you thought that far ahead, and you brought that giant snake down as well, impressive Naruto-kun." The Kusa Nin interrupts their argument. "Well, that means a lot coming from a Sannin and all, right Orochimaru?" Naruto answers the Kusa Nin. "How did you figure it out?" Orochimaru asks in his regular voice. It was coarse and deep. It irritated Naruto's ears. "That summoning contract with the snakes makes you stand out quite a bit, you know," Naruto summaries. Sasuke looks toward the shinobi in disguise in disbelief. He had been fighting a legendary Sannin and was still breathing. "You know I always liked toads more than snakes anyway," Naruto interrupts Sasuke's train of thought. Orochimaru scowls at the reminder of his old teammate. Naruto had a cocky smirk on his face showing he knew exactly what he was doing. Sasuke's one plan for getting away was now kaput. This ninja had snuck in and was obviously way above the level Genin or Chunin, for that matter. They had to fight. Naruto jumps down to land next to Sasuke. Orochimaru rolled up his sleeve, and an odd tattoo could be seen. He took some blood from inside his cheek and drew a straight line across his tattoo. "Kachiyose no jutsu," he says as he makes the hand signs. Shit kind of wanted to stop him from summoning snakes anymore, Naruto swears as he readies a kunai. A snake, the size of the one Naruto fought before, was now under Orochimaru. "Oi, you old bag, you should at least fight fairly. You know none of us has any summons," Naruto screams as he dodges a tail coming for him. "Kukuku, we are not samurai, you know. So why should I fight fair?" Orochimaru says from the top of the snake. "Yeah, I know," Naruto says in resignation. He then steels himself. "Looks like I will have to get serious," Naruto thinks. "Sorry, Gigi. I know you wouldn't want Orochimaru to see me do this, but I have no choice, Sakura, Sasuke. I am about to do something that you can never tell anyone," Naruto says as he stands up from his crouched position and goes through the seals tiger, horse, tiger, snake in quick succession. "Mokuton. Daijirin no jutsu," he screams after finishing his seals. Sasuke looks wide-eyed toward Naruto. At first, he felt betrayed that he hadn't said that he had the Mokuton. Then a wave of more severe anger took over and completely overshadowed the hurt. He was falling even further behind his teammate. Orochimaru's eyes gleamed. To get to see this legendary Kekkei Genkai in actions naturally, wonderful, he thinks. As the best scoring student in her year, Sakura also recognized the feat as the Shodai's exclusive Kekkei Genkai. However, she was too shocked to grasp what implications Naruto's skill had. Naruto's left arm morphed into 3 wood logs, and he stretched them out towards the snake and held it down. "Sasuke, I might need some help here." Naruto turns towards Sasuke with a slight smile on his face with closed eyes. A small sweat drop ran down his temple, showing his exhaustion. Sasuke snapped out of his musings. His Sharingan flaring to life, jumped onto the snake and stabbed it in the stomach. It disappeared in a poof of smoke. Orochimaru lands on the branch underneath the snake, and he smiles sinisterly. "Look at you two go," Orochimaru says to himself. "If I remember correctly, the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox is a blonde boy whose name was Naruto. I guess this is him then," Orochimaru mumbles. Naruto and Sasuke land on the ground, smiles spreading on their faces. Orochimaru disappeared into the tree's bark underneath him and sneaked up behind Naruto. Naruto jumps away from the strike from behind. "You really are going all out in this we're not samurai thing, aren't you?" Naruto asks as he lands next to Sasuke. "Of course I am. You should do that too," Orochimaru answers. Naruto put his hands in the snake seal. "Mokuton. Jukai Koden." Naruto screams out, and the trees around them begin to sprout from the trees around them. They grow at a steady pace toward Orochimaru. Orochimaru cuts the trees that come into his vicinity with just wind chakra. "Tch, I guess it won't be that easy," Naruto scoffs. Naruto jumps down and attacks Orochimaru with taijutsu instead. "Wait, Naruto!" Sasuke screams after him, but he doesn't stop. Naruto throws a right hook straight for Orochimaru's temple. He deflects the strike easily. "You had to do better than that, Senju," Orochimaru taunts. Naruto's gaze hardens. He grabs onto Orochimaru's arm and pulls down. Orochimaru's eyes widen in shock. "How can this genin pull down my arm?" he thinks. Naruto uses his left hand to switch with his right and pins down Orochimaru's arm. With this momentum, he flips and uses his leg to swing down onto Orochimaru's head with his heel. Orochimaru crashes down into the branch. "This guy," Orochimaru thinks with a wicked smirk. Naruto jumps away when he feels Orochimaru melt away in a mud clone. Naruto readies his stance. Orochimaru walks out of the tree opposite him. "What a splendid shinobi you will be in a few years. If you live that long," Orochimaru threatens. Naruto reaffirms his stance. He was not going to die today. Naruto snaps out of his inner monologue when Orochimaru begins to attack. He blocks the first few strikes but misses the third, fifth and sixth strike. He flies into the tree behind him hard. Sasuke is staring at the battle, unable to move. How was Naruto so far ahead of him? Orochimaru walks over to Naruto slowly. "You truly are talented, Naruto-kun," Orochimaru says as Naruto tries to stand up. "I'm not done yet," Naruto answers. He applies some healing chakra to his broken ribs. "Oh ho, healing as well," Orochimaru says with that sickening smile. "Well then. How about we end this now then," Orochimaru says when he is close enough to strike Naruto. Orochimaru opens his palm and engulfs his fingertips in a purple flame. Had Naruto had better eyesight, he would have seen 5 different kanjis on each fingertip. Naruto gets hit by the open palm in the stomach. Naruto instantly lost consciousness. "Naruto!" Sakura screams out in concern. Sasuke looks back at his teammate and looks on in shock. He had never seen Naruto so outclassed before. Orochimaru throws Naruto away. "It is a shame he is a Jinchuriki, otherwise I would have taken him in as my new vessel," he thinks. Sakura snaps out of her surprise and throws a kunai to lodge him in place. Sasuke took a second to gather himself. He remembered the words Itachi said before disappearing after that night. "If you want to kill me, resent me, hate me and continue to live your ugly life, flee and hang on to your life," he screams. He activates his Sharingan again and gets ready to defend his teammates from this monster in front of him. "Just what I expect of the Uchiha clan," Orochimaru states mainly to himself. "I should take my time and confirm his true power," he says as he gets into a ready stance. Sasuke takes the kunai he used against the snake and places it in his mouth, reading himself. Then, he runs towards Orochimaru and jumps up into the air. He throws a couple of kunai and shuriken toward his opponent, but Orochimaru tilts his head out of the way. He reaches a tree and uses it as a springboard to launch himself toward Orochimaru. When he comes close enough, he throws a blocked kick, but he flips in the air and throws another one. This one connects with Orochimaru. It was weaker than the first. However, he used it as leverage to get away from his grasp. Sasuke landed a few paces away from Orochimaru. Orochimaru was impressed that he managed to land a kick on him, even if it was a weak one. It was his turn to attack, though. And he was adamant about testing the Uchiha's abilities, so he started running towards Sasuke at high Chunin level speed. Sasuke was able to match him. Sasuke and Orochimaru exchanged kicks and punches at a high rate. I can see through it. Sasuke thinks triumphantly after dodging some strikes. Orochimaru suddenly vaulted over Sasuke and increased his speed, vanishing from Sasuke's view. Sasuke looks around frantically, trying to glimpse Orochimaru's form. He soon finds him. I can see him. He thinks even more triumphantly than last time. He was starting to have fun. Orochimaru extended from his legs to get a punch in. Sasuke manages to dodge. Orochimaru tries to crash into Sasuke, but Sasuke manages to jump away. He lands a few paces away. He shoots out a Gokakyu no Jutsu from his mouth without weaving any signs. The branch Orochimaru had struck lit up in a fiery explosion. Sasuke gathers more chakra in his lungs and shoots out an even larger fireball. Orochimaru smiles within the fire. Then, he expels chakra, and the fire dissipates. He drags himself near the ground like a snake. The branch didn't stand a chance against the force and broke violently. He swipes when he gets within striking range of Sasuke. Sasuke does a backflip high into the air to avoid. Sasuke lands 5 meters away from Orochimaru and breaths out. He readies himself for an approach from his opponent. He's pretty good. You foretell my movements, and your aim is sure. You can see my moves, can't you? Orochimaru thinks of his younger opponent. Orochimaru sends a blast of wind towards Sasuke. The branch explodes, and a considerable chunk falls, but Sasuke evades. He uses his evasive maneuver to get in behind Orochimaru at lightning speed. He pulls him off the branch and into a grab. I got you. Sasuke screams as Orochimaru is driven into the branch headfirst. Orochimaru hit the branch so hard it cracked and broke his neck. Sasuke lets go and jump away in a flip. The limp body slowly turns into mud and falls apart. Kawarimi! Sasuke exclaims before kunai starts raining down on him. He manages to dodge by flinging himself off the branch he is standing on. He pulls out a ninja string and wraps it around a small stub to swing across. The stub almost catches on fire due to the friction. He lands on a new branch and looks around for his opponent. Orochimaru comes from in front of him with a punch ready and hits him straight in the face. Orochimaru continues to press his advantage. A few punches, a knee, and a final punch connect, and Sasuke flies off. Sasuke lies on the ground, seemingly unconscious. Sasuke-kun? Sakura screams out in fear. Humph. You are too easy. The Uchiha name is crying. That's okay. I'll take my time and play with you before I kill you. Orochimaru mocks after he walks up to the youngest Uchiha. Like a worm, he adds with delight. Sasuke opens his eyes. Small charges attached to Orochimaru's clothes light up and explode, catching Orochimaru off guard. Sasuke uses his surprise to jump up and away while flinging shuriken with ninja string attached to them and manipulates them to go around the tree they were standing on to tie Orochimaru up. Sasuke flashes the signs to a jutsu. Kaden. Ryuka no Jutsu. Sasuke echoes in his mind before he unleashes a massive flame breath guided by the string in his mouth straight at and through Orochimaru and the tree he was tied to. Orochimaru screams in pain. Orochimaru's lifeless body only remained upright thanks to the string still around him and the tree. Sasuke finally lets himself rest a bit. Sakura comes running towards him. Sasuke-kun, she screams, you did it. She adds as she stands next to him. Are you okay? Hang in there, she says to her crush. Orochimaru's body begins to move. It tore itself through the string. He took a couple of steps away from the trunk he was stuck to and looked towards Sasuke and Sakura. A piece of his face had begun peeling off his face, and his slit-like pupil and yellow eyes could be seen. The skin was also extremely pale, almost white. He put his hands in a seal, and Sasuke was suddenly unable to move. Paralysis? His mind deduced. I didn't expect that you could use Sharingan this much at your age. You are truly a member of the Uchiha clan. I do want you, after all. Orochimaru says as he changes the KUSA headband to an Auto one instead. Sasuke screams as he tries to fight off the paralysis. You're definitely his brother. Your eyes hide more ability than Itachi. Orochimaru says, and Sasuke's breath hitches at the mention of his brother. Who in the world are you? Sasuke asks. Didn't you listen to your teammate? My name is Orochimaru. If you think you want to meet me again, desperately run to the top of this test. He introduces himself as he burns their scroll in a green flame. The scroll, Sakura exclaims. Defeat the 3 sound ninja under my control. Orochimaru explains to Sasuke. You are not making sense at all. Sakura cries, we don't want to see your face ever again, got it? She adds, Kukuku. That won't do. Orochimaru says. Orochimaru makes a custom seal, and his neck extends to a ridiculous extent. He flies through the air and bites down on Sasuke's neck. Sasuke-kun, Sakura cries out. Orochimaru's neck goes back to his body after a few seconds and a weird mark with 3 tomos forms on Sasuke's neck. Sasuke grabs it in pain. Sasuke-kun? What did you do to Sasuke? Sakura yells at Orochimaru. I gave him a parting gift. Sasuke would absolutely come to look for me, looking for power. I enjoyed seeing your various powers. Orochimaru says as he sinks into the bark of the tree. I will even leave your precious little wood user as a to see what he will become, he says just before disappearing. Sasuke-kun, hold on, Sasuke-kun. Come on, Sakura pleads with a screaming Sasuke. He was clearly in a lot of pain. He was struggling, and Sakura was holding his hand. Sasuke-kun, come on, Sakura pleads with him. Sasuke-kun, Sasuke-kun, she says as he falls into her arms, unconscious. Sakura sobs silently. Naruto. Sasuke-kun is. Sasuke-kun's. She yells out for her other teammate. No response. What should I do? She asks herself as she holds Sasuke close. Naruto began to stir. He felt an abhorrent chakra nearby. It was so disgusting that he almost felt like puking. He opens his eyes and sees Sasuke standing in the middle of the clearing. His hair shadows his face. Some other ninja was lying at his feet screaming while holding his arms. Odd he hadn't heard his screams until he saw him. Sasuke had weird markings all over his left side. He was leaking a dark purple miasma-like chakra. It felt so malevolent. Sakura and Team 10 were standing a bit away from Sasuke. Her hair is short now. It's a shame, really, even he could say that her hair was always beautiful. Bushy Brows was also lying unconscious near Sakura. Blood was visible from his left ear. Stop, Sakura screams as she runs up behind Sasuke and hugs him. Please stop, she whispers, barely audible. The marks and the gross chakra began receding back onto his neck. Then he falls to his knees. Sasuke-kun, Sakura says as she helps him sit up. He was heaving. You're strong, the only conscious attacker says as he holds up his team's scroll. Sasuke-kun, we can't defeat you the way you are now, he says as he lays the scroll down on the ground. This is our fee for settling this. Please let us withdraw from here, he says. He walks over to his male teammate, slung his arm over his shoulder, and carries him. It seems selfish, but we now have something we need to confirm, too, he says. That being said, let's make a promise. If there's another opportunity to battle in this test, we won't run or hide, he adds while picking up his last companion. The attacker then starts to walk away. Wait, Sakura screams. He turns around. Who in the world is Orochimaru? What did he do to Sasuke? Why Sasuke? She asks. I don't know. We were just given orders to make the hit on Sasuke. He answers then walks away again. Naruto tries to get up. He stands up and stumbles over to Lee. What do you think you are doing? A pompous voice says, catching everyone off guard. Everyone except Sakura and Sasuke looks towards Lee and sitting Naruto. Healing his ear. What does it look I am doing? Naruto replies without looking away from Lee's body. So shut up, this takes concentration, he adds as he starts focusing. There was something weird, though. He didn't feel the Kyuubi's chakra in his body at all. He remembers Orochimaru slamming his hand into his stomach but not what he did. He would have to talk to his Gigi about it later. Naruto seals his hands into the snake seal and tries to concentrate again. A faint green glow emanated from his hands. It was weaker than it used to be, and it flickered. But he persevered, and the chakra got more stable. He places his hands near Lee's ear and waits. It took him a few minutes longer than usual, but he felt the ear heal up. Thank you, Lee's female teammate says quietly as she walks over to Lee. Naruto fell almost immediately after he stood up. Ino caught him. Hey there, big guy. You really ought to rest after you were unconscious, you know. She says softly into his ear. Ino. Ah, Shit, sorry, didn't mean to scare you, just had to. Play the hero, you know how it is. Naruto tries to joke, but a sudden pain interrupts him. I know. Just lie back down. Ino guides him down into her lap. She strokes his spiky hair with her hand softly, and a small smile spreads on her face. Geez, what am I going to do with you? She asks herself softly enough that nobody heard. Sakura saw their little interaction and sighed. At least she had one less rival to compete with. She looks over to Sasuke, who is still shaking. Here, take it. We already have the Earth Scroll, and it's a thank you for healing Lee. Neji says as he throws it to Sakura. She catches it and puts it in her pouch while giving him a curt nod. We're leaving, Neji says to his teammates. Lee had woken up and was ready to leave, so was 10-10. They jumped away. Team 10 were waiting for Ino, who was still stroking Naruto's hair softly. Come here, Sakura, I'll fix your hair, Ino says as she gently moves Naruto to the ground. That would be great, thank you, Sakura answers and walks over to her former friend. Man, that's so good too, Ino heard Naruto say, and a tick mark forms on her temple. She hits him pretty hard. Ouch, Naruto screams as he flops around. Taking advantage of me like that. Unforgivable, Ino screams in her head. The others just laughed awkwardly. Ino began cutting Sakura's hair. You alright? Naruto says to Sasuke as he walks up to him after simulating how much it hurt getting hit by Ino. Of course, it wasn't that hard. He just likes to exaggerate for theatrics. I'm not sure. Sasuke interrupts his thought. You want to talk about it? Naruto asks as he sits down next to him. No, Sasuke simply states and walks off. Naruto sighs. And we were just getting back to normal too. Ino was done with Sakura's hair, and they were ready to move out. Shikamaru, Choji and Ino took off not that long after. Team 7 were alone again. It has been 4 days since the test started. Team 7 was sitting around a campfire and ate. We only have a day left to find a heaven scroll, Naruto observes. If there even is another heaven scroll around. Orochimaru destroyed our original heaven scroll, who is to say that other teams didn't do the same? Sakura adds her own observation. I get what you are saying. The next enemy we meet is probably the last chance we have. Sasuke says while getting a sad nod from Naruto confirming his suspicions. Well, anyway, I need to fill this with water. We will move afterwards, he says as he stands up. Kabuto jumps down next to them pretty soon after Sasuke leaves. Oh, if it isn't the Senju and Uchiha team. He says with a warm smile. Naruto reaches for a kunai immediately. Did you lose your last member? He asks in a friendly tone. No, he is fetching some water. Sakura answers in the same manner. Naruto, he is a friend. She whispers shout at her teammate. No, he has every right to be cautious, especially in this late in the exams. But worry not, I have my 2 scrolls. Kabuto says while pulling out one of each scroll. Naruto lowers his hands but still keeps an eye on Kabuto. Sasuke chooses that moment to come back and sees another ninja with his team. He goes into attack mode but is stopped by Naruto's glance. What are you doing here then? Naruto asks. Simple, my team has already passed. We just need to get to the tower. We choose to do so separately, Kabuto explains. It looks like you only have one. So let's team up to get to the tower. It will give you more of a chance to beat someone on their way to the tower, and I'll get some company. What do you say? Kabuto asks. Naruto and Sasuke exchanged a look, but Sakura spoke up on their behalf before deciding. Sure, we need all the help we can get. She says. Great, let's get a move on, Kabuto says. Naruto signed to Sasuke that someone was watching them. They traveled in silence. Naruto still didn't trust Kabuto. His story didn't make sense to him. A 6-time failure shouldn't have this much chakra. Sakura didn't know what to speak about, and Sasuke never liked to talk to anyone. When they came within seeing distance of the tower, it was already nighttime. So they decided to move slowly through the last patch just in case of traps. After moving a bit further, they soon realized that they hadn't moved at all. Genjutsu, Naruto just stated. Seems like it. Kabuto answers. They back up to form a square with their backs together. Soon an impressive number of clones began moving toward them. The clones moved closer to the 4 of them. Scroll please, they all ask in a monotone voice. It looks like this is some form of genjutsu too. I've never seen clones like these, Naruto says. Yeah, I saw it with my Sharingan, Sasuke says. They fought off those that came close enough to do damage for a couple of hours. Soon those who cast the genjutsu walked down to the tired bunch. Looks like we are done here. Lucky, he says, his teammates just laugh along. Hey, Naruto says out of nowhere. Team 7 and Kabuto was standing behind them with smirks on their faces. The four in front of him disappear in a poof of smoke each. Looks like Kage Bunshin is a lot more useful than I first expected, the real Naruto says. They all jump onto the backs of their would-be tormentors and knock them out. Team 7 looked for their scroll and found it on one of the members. It was a heaven scroll. Yusha's second exam done, Naruto screams out while jumping into the air. They hastily moved to the tower to make it on time. Team 7 stood in front of the tower. Finally, they could relax a bit before the last test. Being on guard for 120 hours straight was tiring for the best of them. They had left Kabuto to his teammates when they met up outside the tower. Sasuke seems to have seen Naruto's mistrust towards Kabuto and his team because he acted more guarded around them. They walk into their room and notice that it is empty except for a big frame with a poem inside. If heaven does not exist, enrich your knowledge and prepare for the chance. If earth does not exist, run in the fields in search of an advantage. Open the series of heaven and earth, and the perilous way shall be redressed. This is namely the secret of the one that guides. Naruto reads aloud. What the hell does that mean? He asks his teammates. It looks like there are words missing there. Sakura states as she is pointing towards holes in the poem. It probably has something to do with the scroll. I think this means we're supposed to open the heaven and earth scrolls, she deduces. Naruto hands her one of the scrolls. They unravel both at the same time. Look out, that is a summoning jutsu. Throw it over there, Sasuke says urgently. A giant poof of smoke erupted, and Iruka stood before them. Hi there. It has been a long time, he says as he gives them a warm smile. What is going on? Sakura asks. It appears you guys have had a rough time, Iruka observes. Tell me about it. 5 days is way too long to be on guard. Naruto says with an easy smile on his face. By the way, we need to talk to Hokage Gigi. Some stuff happened in the forest. Naruto's easy expression melted away. What happened? It must be serious if you need to talk to Sandame-sama. Iruka asks with a worried expression. We ran into a nuke nen. We can't tell anything more than that. I'm sorry. Naruto says before anyone had a chance to tell Iruka. I understand, but I can't promise that you get to speak with him, Iruka says after thinking about it for a bit. Although you aren't even supposed to talk with your Jonin senseis, so I will see what I can do, Iruka adds. Thank you. Naruto's smile returns quickly. I'll go and see if you can talk to him. Also, congratulations on surviving the second exam, Iruka says with a smile as he leaves in a shunshin. I can't believe you didn't tell us you had Mokuton. Sasuke says in a hurt voice. We are supposed to be teammates. You should be able to tell us anything, he continues to rant as he walks around the room. Naruto was sitting on his knees in front of him. He did feel bad about not talking about his Kekkei Genkei. It is a big part of who he is and a big source of pride. Same as it is for Sasuke and his Sharingan. Sasuke paces back and forwards while ranting loudly about trust and camaraderie. Sakura, on the other hand, had totally forgotten about the incident. She was too focused on what had happened to Sasuke afterwards. Now she wanted to voice something about the weird bruise Orochimaru had left on Sasuke but couldn't get a word in edgewise. After a couple of minutes of Sasuke's rantings, there were a knock on the door. Naruto went and opened it. Am I interrupting something? The kind voice of his Gigi says. No, please come in, we have a lot to talk about, Naruto says while sending a warning glare towards his male teammate. So I hear you had a run-in with a nuke nin in the forests, the aged Hokage says. Yes, we ran into Orochimaru, Naruto says seriously. The Hokage almost swallowed his pipe. He hadn't gotten any report that said Orochimaru was back in the village. Are you sure it was him? He asks in a grave voice. Positive. He had a snake summoning contract and confirmed my suspicions himself after I confronted him, Naruto says in a somber tone. I think he did something to Sasuke, Sakura pipes up. She couldn't hold it to herself any longer. Sasuke looks towards her angrily. He also knows about my Mokuton, Naruto adds. The Hokage took a couple of puffs from his pipe. This was bad. Very bad. Orochimaru knowing of Naruto's Mokuton was bad. His interest in the Sharingan was also something to take into consideration. He also put some form of seal on my stomach. I can't feel the Kyuubi's chakra anymore. Naruto whispers to the Hokage. Okay, here's what we will do. Sasuke, you will come with me, and we will check whatever Orochimaru did to you and Naruto. Can you lift your shirt, the Hokage says. Naruto lifts his shirt, and Hiruzen looks at the seal. He saw the Gogyo Fuin. This won't hurt a bit. Ready 3. But instead of counting down, he slammed his hand into Naruto's stomach. Gogyo Kaian, he says as Naruto loses consciousness. He will wake up in an hour or two, don't worry, the aged man soothes the worried-looking Sakura. Come on now, Sasuke. Let's meet up with Kakashi so he can look at that thing Orochimaru did. He leads Sasuke out of the room. Your final examination starts in 3 hours. You should rest until then, he says as he closes the door on Sakura and the sleeping Naruto. A couple of hours later and Naruto began to wake up. He heard some quiet small talk a few meters away from him. Sasuke looks over to Naruto. Looks like you are up. Good, we only have an hour before the start of the final exam, Sasuke says to Naruto. Naruto nods back. He stands up and shakes off the last sleepiness he felt. He was ready for whatever this annoying exam could throw at him. Team 7 and the other teams that passed the second exam stood in an arena of sorts. It had concrete floors and 2 giant hands placed in a ram seal coming out one of the long walls. There was a stage in front of the hands. It also had a balcony that was looking over the entire arena. The Hokage was about to speak. He stood in the front of the stage with the sensei of the passing teams behind him. The proctors of the test stood in line with the Hokage but not on the scene. First off, congratulations on finishing the Skand exam. Anko congratulates the 21 passing participants. I'm hungry, Choji complains. There are still this many remaining? Talk about a drag. Shikamaru chimes in. Sasuke and the others passed, too. An excited Ino says. Of course they did. They are the strongest genin team we have, Shikamaru shots back. Your team didn't do too bad. I guess they were lucky, Guy underhandedly compliments Kakashi. But as long my team is around, this is probably as far as they can go. After all, whether you like it or not, ability talks at the next barrier, he boasts. Well, adolescence can sometimes be bittersweet and harsh, Kakashi. He says, did you say something? Kakashi simply replies, oh my god. Guy screams out in frustration. Please watch, Guy-sensei. I'll shine, too. Lee screams out of nowhere, gaining a few weird looks from his competitors. What, all the Konoha rookies are here? Sakura observes. Of course they are. They trained with us for all their academy years. Naruto says confidently. I guess that is true. Sakura didn't sound convinced. HMPH. I still don't have a very good feeling about this. Sasuke whispers to himself while rubbing the weird bruise on his shoulder. The sealing helped, but he still felt strange. Almost like he was weaker with it sealed. Now then, we will now listen to the explanation of the third exam from Hokage-sama. Anko continues with her speech. Listen carefully, everybody. She finishes. The Hokage takes a few steps forward and clear his throat. Before the explanation of the third exam I have just one thing I want to tell everyone flat out. About the true purpose of these exams. Why do allied nations conduct the exams on a conjoint basis? He asks, raising the levels of the shinobi and friendship among allied nations. It won't do to have the wrong idea of the true meaning of that statement. These exams are, so to speak, he says before he takes a small smoke break, a microcosm of battle between allied nations. He finishes his thought. What does that mean? 1010 asks the Hokage. If we look back on history, the allied nations of today were once neighboring nations that continued to vie with each other and battle over power. In order to avoid a futile crushing of each other's military strength, those nations mutually selected a place to battle. He answers. And that was how the Chunin exams originally began. After a few more minutes of explanation on how nations that perform well in these public showcases can force weaker nations to bend to their will using the business they get. The Hokage finally finishes his lesson in the history and politics of the Chunin exams. If anyone wants the full explanation, it is the latter half of episode 37. Now then, this is where I'd like to explain the third exam. The Hokage says. A ninja standing with the proctors suddenly arrives before the Hokage in a kneeling position. Hokage-sama, Please allow me, Gecko Hayate, who was given the task of judge, to speak first. He says in a soft voice. I'll leave it to you. The Hokage simply states as he backs off a bit. Nice to meet you, everyone. The man says before having a cough. There's something I'd like you all to do. Before the start of the third exam, he says, getting interrupted by coughing fits every so often. He then coughs again before saying, that is a preliminary to the third exam, with participation on the main battle on the line. He coughs again. What do you mean, preliminary? Shikamaru bursts out. Sensei, I don't understand the point of that preliminary. Why aren't we doing the next exam with the remaining test takers? Sakura adds in confusion. This time around, perhaps because the first and second exams were easy, there are a few too many people left, you see. The proctor explains. Following the rules of the Chunin exams, a preliminary will be held in order to reduce the number advancing. He adds. No way, Sakura exclaims. As Hokage-sama said before, many guests will be coming to the third exam. So we can't have pointless matches and our time is limited as well. He explains. Therefore those of you not in top physical condition. He says before getting interrupted by another coughing fit. Hey, is he okay? Ino asks herself while listening to the numerous coughing fits the teacher has. Excuse me, those of you who wish to drop out, please speak up now. The proctor says after he was done coughing. The preliminary will begin immediately, so. He says before getting cut off by an angry Kiba. Immediately you say. He shouts in a loud voice. But we finally made it through the second exam, Ino sighs while slumping her shoulders. Troublesome, came a tired sigh from Shikamaru. Huh? What about our meal? Choji asks dumbfoundedly. THSTA all for now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments.